a three-time sports editor, former online and managing editor, and host of Talk That Talk, award-winning journalist Terrell Chatterbox Emerson.
Welcome to it. Welcome to it. It is 12 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, so it's a little bit different, but it is time for the Talk That Talk radio show. I am your host, Terrell Chatterbox Emerson. I am in studio. If you guys are watching on YouTube, we'll get to all logistics in a second. You guys already know who I'm in the studio with. Will Despart, what's going on with you, brother?
Chilling. How we doing?
We are living the dream over on this end, man. We have a lot to discuss. We have a world of sports that we need to get to and that we will get to. I think some people feel like the sky is falling here in Vegas, but we're going to get right to it. But yeah, guys, again, let me make sure I got to. Okay. My dad just texted me with his tip in, but I had to double and triple check and make sure that he wasn't texting me that the sound or the audio was off. So everything looks to be pretty cool. But yeah, man, let's go ahead and get started. It's your Monday episode of the Talk That Talk radio show. I am your host, Terrell Chatterbox Emerson, in studio with my guy, Will Despart of the Sporting Tribune. We have a lot to get to today.
Busy weekend.
Okay, so just in terms of busy, right? I know we're in December.
Yes, sir.
Where did yesterday rank for you in terms of busiest days of the year?
Well, Saturday surprisingly was bad too, because of college basketball. The Saturday schedule
You're
was
sick.
brutal. So I had 2 previews I had to do, and then I had 2 games I had to cover. So I did that, and then Sunday, obviously, I was thinking, oh, all right, get to relax a little bit till the Raiders play at 10. No, Barry Odom news breaks at before 7 a.m. So I was awake. I happened to be awake because I'm a sicko. And then, yeah, I was planning on going back to sleep for a little bit, and that never happened. That
right?
never happened. So yeah.
So I was up for 21 hours Sunday.
You're crazy.
And I had to close the bar last night still too. So
I'll do it.
The Juan Soto news broke while I was in the bar. So I'm over here like in my phone fixing up the rundown. I'm like, okay, I gotta add this to it. But yeah, man, we will get to all of that in a second. I think yesterday was the busiest day of the year for me, aside from I know that there was a game a day earlier this year where I had Aces, Nighthawks, and Aviators.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I went to the Nighthawks, but I had those 3 stories.
Yeah.
So for the rest of you guys too here in Vegas, a lot of you guys are like, "Oh well, how are you covering 2 games at once, or you did 3 stories in that one day?" Let's go ahead and flip the camera back. I think I found somebody who does more stories in a day than I do.
Dude, I had to bring because I was covering games remote this weekend. I had to bring a 3rd TV out in my living room just because I was like, I want to have the PlayStation on still. I had the football on, so I was like, I don't want to turn the football off to put on basketball. So I was like, all right, I gotta grab my TV from my room and just brought it out to the living room. So I had 3 screens.
My living room looks sick, brother.
I gotta swing by.
2 TVs in my living room. It's monitors everywhere. Yeah. It's iPads. It's laptops.
That's what I'm on too. Like
it's everywhere.
Doesn't even look human, but
I'm telling you, bro, it's mad papers and mad TVs. Like that's literally what our life consists of. But again, guys, if you guys are watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. If you would like to watch on YouTube, all you have to do is go to YouTube, go to the search bar, type in Talk That Talk Radio Show. Once again, go to YouTube, go to the search bar, type in Talk That Talk Radio Show. It's pretty much the same across every platform. You guys can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook. The one thing that would be different is our Twitter. Our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. Once again, guys, our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. And of course, this show, this new setup that has been brought in.
Cozy.
It's a little cozy, brother. It's a little cozy. Shout out to Max Bet Media for definitely bringing this in and just making it work. Just making it work for us. Again, this show is being shot from the Harry Reid Research and Technology Park here on Sunset in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode 38 of season 6, episode 322 overall. And you know what's funny about that number? 322 is only funny in my mind because no matter what number we get to, I started counting when I got to UNLV.
Yeah.
So that is from January 28th, 2018. That was our first show here in Vegas.
It's pretty consistent.
Shout out to Alex White, you know? Shout out to Alex White. You ready to talk about the sky falling?
Let's talk about the sky falling.
Let's talk about the sky falling. You kind of just talked about it right now, right? But we wake up and you're wherever you are getting ready to cover this game. I'm wherever I am getting ready to cover this game. And before I even get to this, I want to detail a conversation that I actually had with somebody from MaxBet Media. Shout out to Mike. Let's go ahead and do another round of applause really quick. I actually was talking to Mike when we met, and he was like, "Oh, you're you do sports, right?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And he was like, "Oh, so you know what the common question is in the last 3 months or so, what do you think about UNLV football?" I think we have a program.
Yes,
I
sir.
think we have a head coach who came in and he bought in and he brought guys with him that bought in. And then the rest of the room bought in. Like that's what I saw, right? That's what I witnessed. And in breaking that down, I told him I hope the city of Vegas appreciates it while it lasts. He looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if you talk to Barry," I said respectfully, I said I've and it's funny that he's gone now because I wish I could have told him this, but I like very rarely do I like my coaches. I don't want to say unapproachable, but very rarely do I like coaches that kind of brush you off, right?
Yeah.
I like it in my football coach. I'm a little biased from that standpoint. I like it in my football coach, right? And I say that to say, you say, "Hey, what's up, Barry? Heard your birthday was last week. Did it, Barry?" You're gonna lose him very
Mhm.
quickly.
He's a football guy. He's like Gruden.
Now, if you that's exactly what he's like. That's kind of funny. Now, if you ask Odom, "Hey, that decision to go with a halfback draw on that 2nd and 10 in the second quarter," Barry would be like, "Oh, so actually, I was talking to Coach Mary, and you got him for 30 more minutes."
Yep.
That's the way he was wired. And I told him, with all due respect to Tony Sanchez, he was that way as well. There were just some other things that came with it.
Yep.
Barry was all football all the time. That's what it appeared, right?
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I said, it looks like Barry belongs in a bigger conference for sure. I said, and with all due respect to the city of Vegas, he needs a football town.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall. I think, especially with his comments after the Boise game and before the Boise game, I think there's like a lack of commitment there. That kind of it made me seem like, okay, the offers he was getting were too good to pass up. And at first, I thought it was going to be UCF or West Virginia. Those were the two hot
I
schools.
thought about UCF.
Hot schools on the press. And then when UCF announced Scott Frost Saturday, it's like, okay, it's one down. But I mean, West Virginia still hasn't announced their guy yet, so I thought that was still I thought that was going to be the most enticing option. Purdue, I knew they were in the mix, so I wasn't like shocked to hear them make the deal. But I was surprised Barry took that. I mean, I'm not now in hindsight hearing the number that he took. I'm not too surprised.
So the number's out. I was waiting
It's
to see.
not
if the
out.
number
I
was
don't
out.
think it's out, but I mean,
Okay, but you heard the number.
there's some you can do the math based on like what they said the increase was on the salary of last year.
Right. Which that number's been floating, right? Obviously, since the news broke on Sunday that Barry Odom was taking the job at Purdue. First of all, how do you feel about that? First of all, I love doing this, and the funny thing is, I don't think there's any group of people better on social media than UNLV sports fans.
Oh, they're brutal, man. They're absolutely nuts. And they're the most like loyal fan base too, in the sense that they're just like no matter what happens to UNLV, they're gonna ride, good or bad. They're gonna defend UNLV.
Whether it makes sense or
Kinda
not.
like they're true warriors on there. Keyboard warriors, but hey, I respect it.
So the reason why I say that is because I have watched for the last 24 hours at this point, right? I've had people asking why would he take the job, right?
It all comes down to money. Again, now when you see it, and now I mean, Purdue is still like a traditional university, like a traditional program,
That's where I'm.
and they have more money than God. Like they have NASA money. Like they have a huge space grant. They're one of the government's favorite universities. Like they're a huge. That's like academically, that's a huge school, and those schools are the ones that really have the most money besides like your SEC football powerhouses. So
Right. Which ultimately, in my opinion, I haven't talked to him about it, and I don't know if I will, considering that he's not here in Vegas anymore, right? Like I was telling Mike that day, I said he strikes me as a down south football coach.
Yeah.
And Mike was like, well, of course he is. And I was like, no. Like he belongs there.
Yeah.
Like
this
if
down
you told
south,
me
Indiana's not down south. This is
It's
Midwest.
not.
Like,
which is why I don't think it's gonna be a long stop either.
I don't think it's going to be a long stop because that program is in shambles. Like they're going to need to give him a long leash, if anything. But this is a team. There's a stat on, I think FanDuel posted it. It was really a Reddit comment that dug it up. If Purdue started every single one of their games up 34-0 this season, they would have still went 6-6. They went 1-11. They didn't win a single game against an FBS opponent. Their only win was in their season opener against Indiana State. They're a horrible football team. The cupboard's as bare as it can be. And really, this is why I don't think Barry might not have a lot of success. He's not bringing Brennan with him. And his cupboard of UNLV was bare too. Probably a big reason why he left UNLV this offseason is because he's looking at what he has left after Ricky and DeJesus and Jackson and all them are gone.
Tiger Shanks.
And he's looking at like,
Catalan.
this is another rebuilding job. If I'm going to have to rebuild these guys again, I might as well go get paid whatever it is, $40 million over whatever, like 6-something years.
Over under, and the number that I was going to give you, over under 4 years in terms of Barry leaving again and going somewhere else.
I would say around 4. Like I think they'll give him a leash, but you're not going to be successful at Purdue. Like it takes a very specific set of circumstances to be successful at Purdue. And Barry, we saw him coach in a power conference before. It's not like he reinvented the wheel. It's not like he reinvented the wheel at UNLV. What he did was he recruited well, and he recruited well because he was in a hotbed that had been not taken advantage of by the previous regimes here.
Absolutely.
And really, that started with Tony, how he made a living in recruiting in Vegas, and Marcus kind of ruined that for his tenure here.
100%.
And now Barry got it back, but that's huge. You have to recruit in Vegas, and you really have to recruit LA too, and that's what they did.
And the interesting thing about Barry Odom, I feel like Barry Odom is somebody who is always going to bet on himself, right? And I know some people say that, and there are some people who you can kind of tell live and breathe that, right? And the interesting thing about Barry to me is I don't know that he won't have success there, because you just talked about it right now.
It's not a Barry thing. I think it's more of a Purdue thing.
But that's my point. How are we visualizing success? Like how are we envisioning, success?
Winning 8 games. Like that's how hard of a job. Like success for him is winning 8 games.
So that's my point. So if you're looking at what, and this is why I said over under for me was 4 years.
He could really win 4 games next year, and that's like an improvement.
Which is why I'm looking at the possibility. Respectfully, we're here in Vegas, so we know about UNLV, right? We know UNLV's history. We looked at each other last year when we had 7 wins and was like, the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
We've never been here. You just said it. I think if Purdue wins 5 games next year, they're like, the hell?
But then if they don't win 9 the next year.
Now, this is where we can get into discussions, right? Now, if they let's say they win 5 originally. Nah, let's bump that because they went 1-11 this year. Let's say that they win 3 games next season. That's an improvement, right? It's marginal improvement. Let's say they win 5 the year after that. Let's say they win 6 after that.
I don't know if that's good enough. I don't know if an improvement. I don't know if getting to 6 wins in 3 years is gonna. And it depends what the buyout is. Obviously,
absolutely,
if the buyout is manageable at that point, but I don't know. Like I don't know what the expectations are in Purdue. Really,
that's my
because
point.
Like they are a big program and they hate losing. This season was painful for them, and they're not like a historical bottom feeder. They're not historically great. They're not historically even very good, but they're not like what UNLV was. Like they've had Drew Brees. Like they played in a Rose Bowl. Like they're a program that's reached pretty high heights in the 90s and in past decades.
And this isn't taking a shot at Barry and what he did with UNLV, right? Because again, like I said before, he changed the football program. Well, took the football program to a height that I never thought I would see when I was here in Vegas. Even the bowl game coming up, right? Barry, his fingerprints are there, but his presence isn't, right? To an Alabama, Bama's Bama, right? But to a power conference school, they may be looking at what UNLV, what he did at UNLV, winning games at UNLV is the huge deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
No shot at him. But a power conference school may be looking and say, well, what did he do there? Oh, you guys didn't win a conference either year. Okay. Oh, you guys didn't win the bowl game. Okay. So that's why I'm saying, how do you marginalize success? UNLV is ready to build a damn statue like of Barry Still, like considering where he's left the program at, right? Which is why I'm considering the marginal success at Purdue. It doesn't have to be marginal success to where he leaves and he goes to go coach Washington. I'm not saying that. But is it marginal success in the point to where I can say, hey, look at what I did with this program? Like you just said before, it's not a bottom feeder program, but this is a program that I literally picked up from the ashes.
It's still going to be a different dynamic than it was here at UNLV.
100% because of the conference.
Also because like it's been so decrepit here that like you just needed like half competence to like bring this city to life. And like Barry Odom, I've said it during his whole tenure, and people look like I had three heads. He's not a perfect coach. He did a great thing by rebuilding UNLV, and he gave future coaches the blueprint of how to recruit in this city and how to build that team. But
you did say that too.
But let's be honest. This guy had various lapses in games that cost them all 3 games this season. Their preparation in their 3 biggest games, and then their 6 biggest games of the Barry Odom era, they flunked all of them. Like he had problems as a coach that were covered up by the fact that he rebuilt this team from the, like you said, the ashes basically, but it wasn't even ashes because nothing existed before. So it's like they have the resources. What's more valuable than more valuable than anything that Odom could have done and anything that any other coach could have done is the fact that they have that football complex built now. The fact that they've got recognition from this season, that they have. It was visualized for people for what 40,000 people in that stadium looks like on national TV for a major ranked game. People see that, and not just people in Vegas, people in New York, people in Florida, people in Minnesota, all over the country who were thinking, oh, where am I going to go play Group 5 football because I'm a 3-star recruit and I don't want to spend 4 years on the bench at Alabama.
You're absolutely right. Right. And in being right, I feel like you have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? The same thing that I had to tell UNLV fans, I don't think anybody needed to. You know what's funny? As much as I sit back and say I don't think anybody needs me to tell you, sometimes people need you to tell them.
People are just going to be fans too, in a sense.
That's exactly what it's going to be, right? But the same way this was a step-up job for TJ Otzelberger, and that call came quicker than he expected, same thing with Barry.
I think people felt different about Barry than they did about TJ though, because they felt Barry Barry gave a lot of lip service. Let's call it what it is. Barry gave a lot of lip service to Vegas. He made it sound like Vegas was in his heart and Vegas was the best place to be. He made it seem like his family wanted to be here for a long term. He had his son commit to college here. That's not going to lie. You think his son's going to be on the UNLV football team next year?
Of course not.
Absolutely not. So what were we doing? We're like.
I can tell you what we're doing. We are becoming one with the city while we're here. That's exactly what you have to do. To be completely honest,
but then it does give you
in terms of what Barry did and what TJ did. I feel like TJ put just as much sauce on it as Barry did.
I was here for TJ, so I can't really speak to that. But I do feel like the aftermath of TJ, and maybe that's why people are so salty. But I feel like
people
TJ
are still watching Iowa State, hoping that they
feel like TJ wasn't like so successful here to the point where it was like it was kind of just like he's successful at Iowa State now, so we're like, oh, what could have been, but he was bad here as a coach.
I think
so. It's kind of like
I think what also changes things
screw
really
him.
quick about Barry. I mean about why did I just say Barry? About TJ. The issue with TJ was somewhat the same issue that we had about Kevin before this offseason. Okay, you brought in 8 new guys. Amazing. 6 of them are seniors. It looked like Barry's time, or why do I keep saying Barry? It looked like TJ's time here. He was putting band-aids over things.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was like, oh, I'm literally trying to hold this dam together just so I can get to the next ship. That's what it appeared.
Yeah.
Barry didn't do that. And by the way, to go back to your original point, we gotta view the opposite side of it. If Barry doesn't come in and gets involved in the city, I commended him the day after the press conference. He was out at high schools. So the man did his research enough to know the last regime didn't do this. When he came in and he brought a couple recruits, the first thing he brought, I paid attention to, was offensive linemen. I said, this is somebody that knows football. So regardless of the fact, I don't know what I'm caught to, but regardless of the fact, I feel like Barry has left this program. UNLV, when TJ left, it was one of those things where it was like, who's going to want that job?
Yeah.
I remember talking to somebody who, how can I put this? This was after Marvin. Well, this was before Marvin, but we kind of knew where it was trending, right? Somebody told me, hey, we all heard Mike Miller or Mike Bibby's name. We all heard all these different names, right? We even heard Jason Kidd's name for a little bit. Somebody was like, hey, Mike Miller is like serious about this UNLV thing. Like, if they're serious, he's serious. I said, okay. I'm doing some digging. To my knowledge, UNLV never reached out.
Yeah.
No, but here's the reason why I'm going there. That's we can have a 30-minute segment on that alone, right?
Yeah.
Because they have a problem there. But bigger than that, no shot at him, but you reached out to Mike Woodson.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but why don't you do your due diligence? Anyway, the reason why I brought that up is because there was an eagerness when Mike wanted that job, right? Fast forward to when TJ left. It's toxic.
Yeah.
Everybody looked at the job like, I don't want it. The last guy that actually was there trying to build a program, you got rid of him. The guy that you replaced him with burned you.
And that stink is still on the program.
It still is, and that's like that. That's why I feel like Kevin needed the time that he's needed, because nobody wanted this job.
But I think his performance this year is completely justified other people who wanted him fired last year.
Oh, we're gonna get to that in the second hour. Y'all know I'm a Kruger fan. I just have some things that we have to discuss, obviously, with this program. But going back to the Barry point, and we can finish with this one. Barry, with all the lip service that he gave, right? Same thing.
And it's not a problem. It's not a bad thing.
No. Same thing.
What it does is it makes people believe you're disloyal when you leave.
That's sports.
And that's fans. And that's, of course, it's sports.
Right.
But I do believe Barry cares about his perception in some degree of that. Like, I think Barry liked this city enough deep down where he doesn't want to leave Vegas and have people in Vegas be like, oh, F Barry.
So let me ask you this question. Barry goes to Purdue and stinks it up. UNLV continues on this trajectory. UNLV doesn't have to go to a college football playoff. UNLV can be...
They're just a consistent bowl team.
That's what I'm about to say. UNLV can average 7 to 8 wins for the next 4 seasons. Barry trashes it at Purdue. He's out in 3. Do you think if Barry Odom came back to Vegas, anybody in this city would treat him differently?
Depends who UNLV had between them. It depends if UNLV kind of like if they fell in love with that guy, and because I think there is going to be a little sour taste from Barry leaving for the fans. I think as much as the fans understand,
UNLV goes back to stinking. Yes,
Yeah, that's true. But even if they're good and he's bad, and like, what if we have a coach that the city comes to love, and he's not? He's maybe he might just get to one Mountain West championship game, but
I
he's
hate to tell you this.
winning 7 consistently. But like,
You want to know what my true feelings are in terms of that?
hit me.
The other coach would have to stay here for the next 25 years. That's truthfully the way that I feel. UNLV is not, and this is what I had to come to. I've came to the realization. Maybe
Are we
before.
really giving that much like credit to last season and what it like? Because like that was the building block, right? This season we kind of had the expectation. Right?
I don't think we're giving that much credit to last season or putting that much credence into the past 2 seasons at all. I think what we're doing, we're identifying where we are. And what I loved most, and we can harp in 1 second if you want to. What I loved most about what Eric Harper said, I felt like it was kind of awkward in the room, but I was like, I loved it because I was like, it's the truth. He said the Big Ten has big pockets or has deep pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of chuckled. In the back of his mind, all I heard that man say was, "Fan, what you want me to do?"
100%. I mean, everyone knew what the deal was going to be this offseason.
So with that being said, that's why I feel like the next guy would have to be here for 25 years, because you would have to come to UNLV, be successful, and then say
stay.
no to other places. You know what?
But that'll never happen. So you have to be like,
but it's already happening. It's happening now. It's happening with Lindy LaRock. You want to know the difference?
Until the Stanford job opens up in 2 years.
That's funny. But you know what's so funny about that? Lindy has said it. I even told Lindy, I was like, Lindy, these people are asking me. I gotta know. I'm pretty close. I gotta be an insider.
But
like
Lindy's in such a unique position where she's eventually like she didn't get it after Tara, but like she's going to be next in line for what's like the most coveted job in almost all sports, women's sports.
Which my whole point is, Lindy. Even before we even get to that, I asked Lindy about TJ. I think there might have been TJ, and I was just asking her about coaches. You know what I mean? Using UNLV as kind of a springboard. You back-to-back Mountain West. I think it was back-to-back at the time. Lindy was like, one thing that I have that these people don't, with all due respect to these people, I'm from here.
That's true.
And that's why I wanted to tell you, that's why it's different. So anybody else, I'm going to be honest, any other football coach that you tell me that you're going to bring in here, if they're marginally successful, I got a 4-year cap on it. So that's why I don't think anybody's going to treat Barry differently, because you're going to realize, oh, damn. Even if we do get good, Illinois is going to come take them. Damn, even if we do get good, Nebraska's going to come take them. Damn, even if we do get good, but
so what we're just going to like, so in that situation, what would we do? We'd have Barry come back for like 4 years until he leaves again?
No, of course not. At least I don't think so. But you know what's funny? I did say that when Barry left.
Oh, I think it's a possibility that like this flames out
me if Barry
and he comes back.
I don't think he comes right back.
No, it'll be like 10, 15 years from now.
I could see Barry in his later coaching years coming back to UNLV. And let's just say he finishes his career with UNLV. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all. But I think a lot of people who are from Vegas, which shocks me bigger than anything, right? Because I come from, no disrespect, I come from the UCLAs, the USCs. It's a little different, just a tad bit. I come from from that type of place. Here in Vegas, it seems like there's so many Vegas natives that do not understand you are a mid-major.
Oh, people still think it's 91.
Even in 91, you were a mid-major.
But we have more money than everyone else.
You were just a great one. You were just a great one.
Because of the money.
I'm not saying the reason why, but, there's some other reasons. But there's, again, a beloved coach who stayed. Another situation.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in the city will even remote now.
Oh, that's also a thing. That's also a thing that happened with Barry. I think everyone has still Tark in their minds where they're like, oh, we're going to have this loyal guy who's going to stick around for.
Well, they need to get it out of their mind.
And look what the university did to Tark.
Exactly.
Look at how they repaid Tark's loyalty. You'd be a fool to be loyal to this damn university and those administrators after what they did to Tark.
Why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
When it comes to UNLV, like I said, the way I view it like a fraternity. I view it like my family. True. I'm gonna let y'all have it behind the scenes because I've had conversations with people, a part of the team with Larry Johnson, prior to Kevin Kruger, which is another reason why Kevin Kruger's importance to this program is bigger than just on the court.
It's like I feel like the people. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I
you're
feel
good.
like the people closest to UNLV are the people who are like the most frustrated with it because it's like we see it and like we see the incompetence and like
We see the same
the
mistakes.
decision making and like
Exactly.
it's like look at what you have. You have a golden goose just from where you're located, just from the amount of pockets in this city. You could hypothetically buy your way into being a power school if you had the resources, like SMU just did. You know how SMU just got into the ACC? They said, keep your damn money, keep your revenue. We're buying our way in. You know what they did? 12-1 first season, 11-2 first season. They're going to the college football playoff because they bought their way in. UNLV doesn't need these people's revenue. What we do because we're broke. But in a perfect world where we managed ourselves and our finances correctly for the last 25, 30 years, this university would be in a great position if they didn't do stupid stuff like firing Tark in 91 when they were or 92 when they're building momentum. If they didn't do stupid stuff like firing Dave Rice. They didn't do stupid stuff like not paying Kruger after he had the basketball program on the trajectory that it was. It's just like every single decision they've made for the last 35 years has been the wrong one. It's like, oh my God.
That is exactly why people will not treat Barry Odom any differently. People are going to talk, but when Barry Odom walks back in Vegas, they're going to treat Barry Odom like a god. I'm telling you something. There are going to be people
Here's another point. How do we even know that Barry even feels that way about UNLV? Like, we know how Barry feels about Vegas as a place, but maybe Barry saw what we saw at UNLV, and he's kind of just like, maybe that's why he was so willing to leave for Purdue on that first offer.
That doesn't change the way that I feel like majority of the fans are going to view him.
Oh, the fans,
Like,
yeah.
But that's what
like,
I'm talking about. But I mean, like, the not to sound like that, if we're talking about the university, now we have to move on because now I'm going to get to skill business. If we're talking about the university, feelings toward coaches are fickle anyway.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Tark. Not to sound like that. The one person who may be inching toward that, and I think there's even a fear still because we just mentioned her, Lindy LaRock. Lindy could have this university in the palm of her hands if she wanted to. I don't know about anybody else. Dwayne Knight could have. I don't know about anybody else. So all of these, with all due respect to these coaches, all of these coaches, I feel like can be loved by this university one day and shunned the next day.
Oh, I mean, again, after the Tark scenario, I mean, there's
anything is on the table after that.
It's like Game of Thrones almost. It's like or like Succession or one of those weird HBO dramas. You could literally make an HBO drama about like just the political power plays.
I would love to do it. I might have to bleep all of this because I kind of want to do it.
I'm gonna need to be on that.
No, there's somebody that we can actually talk to about this. I talked to. Do I want to say this? I'm not going to talk about the league, but I talked to somebody about a documentary.
Okay.
And I'm working. Oh
boy.
I'm thinking, and docs take time, long-term storytelling. So have some fun with it. But UNLV did fall short on Friday in their Mountain West Championship, second straight Mountain West Championship game against Boise State. This time was in Boise, Idaho. We talked about them holding Ashton Jeanty, right? And it's a lot to ask a program to do it twice. And I'm gonna be honest, that first 57-yard touchdown, that one where he was going right to left, that was the backbreaker.
Yeah.
When that one happened, I was like, yeah, doesn't really matter. I don't think the offense is going to score again or going to score. And lo and behold, shout out to Greg Burrell, who went ahead and did that as well, right? Or who went ahead and scored toward the end of the game as well. But I told you guys before the bowl game, or excuse me, before the title game, I told my dad after the fact, if I'm just being selfish, I understood that the winner of the Mountain West was going to the was going to the college football playoff. Therefore, just by knowing the way that this sport goes, I said, technically, the winner of the Mountain West always goes to the LA Bowl. So does that mean the runner-up slides into that spot? I'm sitting here.
Well, that
And
was always the
again,
projection too. That was like
it was the projection last year. I want you to know that.
for Boise to not. I know when Boise State won, like were they
Yeah.
supposed to get into like a BCS bowl? 'Cause I remember
I don't
Liberty.
remember
Liberty got the
exactly.
BCS
Ye-
spot last year.
Yeah, I think they were in. I don't know how they had it shook up for a little bit, but like me and my dad talked about it last year, and I was like,
Maybe because they were just
if we
projected to
get-
win the conference at
I
one
think that's what
point.
it was.
Yeah,
Because of the start, maybe.
yeah.
Because we know how Boise's non-conference usually
And
is,
Boise
right?
was bad last year for a chunk of the season until they fired their coach.
Until they got it together. So I went back and watched that game, right? And I watched a team who it did feel like what Barry said was true about the team not being ready last year, not being prepared for it, and them feeling prepared for it this time around.
They felt prepared for it. They weren't prepared for it.
Clearly, right? But same thing with Lindy LaRocque's team, which we're about to get into in maybe 30 minutes or so. You got to keep putting yourself in those situations, right?
Yep.
And this bowl game is actually another one of those situations. They're headed to SoFi Stadium. They are headed to the LA Bowl. I'm going back home. I'm excited. I'm extremely excited. I have been smiling uncontrollably since yesterday.
Yeah, that's fire.
I'm not gonna lie, just to see UNLV, to see my alma mater in my hometown is gonna be a moment for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting there super early. I'm not even gonna hold you. I just want to take it all in. But they're playing Cal. They're playing a tough Cal team. They're playing somebody that they know very, very well in terms of Noah Williams, right?
Yep.
I went and did a little bit more digging into just the year that Noah had.
He was one of the best defensive backs in the country this year.
Man. UNLV already, we take deep shots, right? But we're not a vertical passing team 70% of the time, 60% of the time. We're not that, right? In fact, I still don't think people talk about a rushing game enough until we play teams like UNR for whatever reason. But it's just funny how life, again, we talk about it off air, on air. It's funny how life in this field writes itself, in my opinion. Like, this job is in no means easy, but I told my dad, once you view it from that perspective, this job gets easier, and it gets significantly easier. That Noah Williams take, right? On top of Barry leaving, right? On top of Dale Alexander taking over, right? On top of these two teams playing in the season opener next year, you can't make this up. Whatever happens on December 18th, that Wednesday night from SoFi Stadium, the LA Bowl, I know people don't like to say it. That's going to set the tone for next season. The reason why it's going to set the tone for next season is going to determine what happens this offseason.
I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I think that, I mean, it depends who they hire first off, and that hire is going to come this week.
Yeah.
If Harper's conference was any indication. But also, I feel like
10 days or less, right?
I feel like if all the seniors play in the bowl game, which is every indication so far, I mean, some of the parents were saying on Twitter yesterday that they're not planning on their kids opting out.
Yeah.
And that they were getting ready for the bowl game and to finish the season strong.
Jackson said it, I think.
Yeah. And then, but back to my point, if that was I think it's going to be a sense of finality. I think it's going to be like the last chapter for them. I mean, it's not the playoff, obviously, but I think if Ricky and Jackson and Kaleo and all them play, I feel like it's going to be more of wrapping a bow on this era, the Barry era, really, without Barry there. But I mean, I don't know how much you can build on a moment where it's going to just be like the closing of a chapter, I guess.
Which is my point. The closing of that chapter, you know what that brings?
A new chapter, but
it's
a new chapter
full of question marks. And what does UNLV's fan base do better than almost any other college fan base?
Panic.
Why did you know what word I was going to use?
Because I'm a UNLV alumni.
Fam, what are we discussing here? The moment that this game is over, everybody's gonna run. You know what was that?
But I think
what
they
was
can
that SpongeBob
alleviate that
episode
panic.
where all of SpongeBob's versions of him in his head was just running around? That's what UNLV is gonna do the moment that this clock strikes 0.
Not if they make a splash higher by Friday.
I guess the clock is ticking, right? Speaking of the clock ticking, how much longer is the Raiders season?
What's it? Probably like 4 more weeks, right?
4 more weeks, brother. It's 4 more weeks. I didn't think you was actually going to give me that answer, but it's 4 more
I
weeks.
really guessed. Like, this NFL season's been such a drag. I don't even like. I had a feeling it was week 14, week 15, but between all these sports going on and UNLV and everything, like I probably paid less attention to like the other 31 teams in the league this year than I ever have.
I actually pay more attention to those other 31 teams this year because the team that I cover so very close
So bad.
is 2-11.
I feel like it was I feel like the Raiders were so bad this year
That
that
you
it was
couldn't
just-
leave them.
It was like no, but it's like I don't even want to watch other football. Like, I would get done with the Raiders game. That'd be 1 p.m. and I'm like, I'm gonna watch. I don't like this. Just spoiled me on football so bad. Like I'm done with it for the day.
Let me go watch DePaul. And
Yeah, I'll watch
busy.
basketball or tennis or some shit.
Choosing tennis over like Sunday football is hilarious, by the way. Yeah, man. So again, I tell my brother, I didn't even talk to him about this game, but I tell my brother I should have. I think after the Arizona game, after that Kyler Murray overtime 18-second play, whatever the hell it was, right?
Yeah.
I told my brother, I said, how do you do it? My brother has a clothing line. My brother was like, how do I press t-shirt? Like, no. How are you a Raider fan? And he kind of laughed it off, but I told him, I was like, hey, I'm in year 2 covering the team. Like my first year, like in person. I said, I want to pull my damn eyes out.
The one thing I don't get is I don't know how you build an emotional connection to a team that's so bad. Like I grew up a Patriots fan, right? So like they were never bad. Like my child, like I guess I never experienced like my childhood was amazing because I was just winning all the time.
What are you stubborn at? You're stubborn with something.
Probably a lot of things.
You're stubborn. Give me something that you're stubborn with.
I
It's
don't
gotta
know
be
off top.
something, brother.
I don't know. I'm just a stubborn person in general, so I think picking one thing is a challenge.
So with that being said, not to sound like that, and you went to UNLV. So now I'm about to add on to it. As much as I'm gonna hold UNLV to the fire, right? I've even been accused plenty of times by UNLV personnel, like, oh, he's against us.
That's silly.
What? Like, you think I don't want to see you guys go to a national championship? Just what are the chances of UNLV going? That's my point, right? And I hold their feet to the fire. So just in terms of being stubborn, this is why I said I liken it to family. I liken it to a fraternity. This is my family. The moment my brother get to talking, hey, watch your mouth. Me and Greg Anthony laugh about it all the time. The moment somebody says about the Rebels,
Oh yeah, 100%.
watch it. Using my Ole Miss, right? Okay, keep that over there. I'm protective, bro. That's the way I feel my brother is with the Raiders. If you've watched a team be so bad, I'll give you the girlfriend analogy. Not to sound like that, bro, but if you didn't went through that amount of stress, I'd be damned if I let you go and watch you actually go. Hell no. Nope. I'm gonna stick it out. We gonna have to figure this out.
At a certain point, you got to question your game, though. You got to be like, damn.
That is great, man. All right, man. Let's question the Raiders game a little bit because in having that previous conversation with my brother, if I would have called him this time, you want to know what the conversation would have went like? It would have went something like this. He would have picked up. I would have been like, "You're." I would have been like, real quick. It's tough being a Raider fan. I'm aware. I know. Whatever. I'm gonna tell you how tough it is to cover the Raiders. These things write themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 takeaways in the first 13 weeks. And then you have 3 takeaways in 30 minutes. Technically less than 30 minutes, right?
Never had a lead.
And you find a way to lose.
Not only did you find a way to lose, you never had a lead. You never were even, and not even they never had a
You
lead.
never felt like you even.
They never were even like, they got within a possession, but
You scored 10
within that
straight points.
possession, it never felt like they were going to score again.
You scored 10 straight points, and everybody was like, "Oh, that was cool. That was cool."
It's just they're the worst team in the NFL. Like like the Giants, no, the Patriots, no. Like when I watch the Giants and the Patriots on a given Sunday, the rare times I watch my Patriots now, I have like
Great
somewhat of
game.
a feeling they can win. Like the Patriots, like they're horrible, right? But they're playing 4 competitive quarters. They're getting like if they play 1-score games, like they're making it look pretty. Like they're not pretty, but like it's entertaining. It's entertaining. Last year, as a Patriots fan, the worst thing they did was they were bad and they weren't entertaining, and that's the worst thing you could be. That's something I said about UNLV basketball last year. That's the cardinal sin about Kevin Kruger's style of play. Is not only was it not productive, it wasn't entertaining. Which, but that's my point. The Raiders, they're just so bad. Like you don't realize that they're gonna lose every week. I mean, I shouldn't say you don't realize that. We do realize that, but it's like they know they don't have a chance. Max Crosby goes into every game knowing they don't have a chance. Devontae Adams said it when he left for the Jets. He said it's nice to be like this team is bad, sure, but I feel like when I go out in the field with the Jets on a Sunday, we have a chance to win. None of those Raiders players are going on the field every Sunday thinking they can win.
So that was fire, by the way. That whole little breakdown was fire. Really quick, and this is not a shot at him. I just want to be sure. Has Devontae won a game with the Jets?
I think he won once or twice.
They only got 3 wins, brother. It ain't twice.
Once.
Okay.
I think he won once against the Patriots, I believe.
So let's just say that they don't win another game. This is random, but let's just say that they don't win another game. That means Devontae Adams played for 2 teams this season and has a grand total of 5 wins.
He would have had a grand total of 2 wins if he stayed here. So I mean, I guess.
I mean, maybe this is the childhood Packer fan in me. We talked about reunions with Barry Odom. I don't think it happens next year. I don't know if it happens the year after that. Devontae Adams is going to finish his career as a Packer.
Oh, a Packer. I thought you were going to say a Raider. I was like,
hell no.
A Packer, yeah, sure. I can see it. I can see him going to Packers next year. I don't think he's going to be a Jet next season.
You know what's funny? I wanted to say that. I don't think it'll be next year, but I do think it would be maybe the year after that. Or even if it was like a deadline deal next year, nobody would be shocked, I don't think.
No.
So you kind of just talked about it, right? But there's an elephant in the room a couple of elephants in the room when it comes to the Raiders. I'm gonna stick with the theme of stories writing themselves, right? I watched that first drive of the second half for the Raiders, or the second quarter for the Raiders. The fumble snap. I believe, first of all, Will, you'll get to know me just like away from this company as a whole, but I'm a horror film guy. I'm not a movie guy like that. But if I'm going to the movies, I'm trying to be scared. I want thriller, I want suspenseful, I want horror, I want gore, I want all of it, right? That said, I use the word omen a lot because I feel like we encounter them in real life often.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that fumble on the first drive of that second quarter. I said they haven't corrected it. And I know some people may be like, what, the fumbling situation? The moment. They still can't capitalize on the moment. And like that's why it goes back to what you said, because that started the stretch of 10 straight points. I watched those 10 straight points with the turnovers in between and was like, nah.
Dog, when he fumbled the snap after they got it was either a pick or a fumble. I can't remember.
It was the
fumbled.
It was the chasing pick.
When he fumbled the ensuing snap, I sat there and laughed for 5 minutes. Like I was actually crying. Like it's just so funny. And I'm sorry to Raiders fans, and I know I shouldn't like say this because I cover the team, but like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like it. Like it's just like unbelievable how bad this team is and how like set on pissing themselves they are. Like it's unbelievable. They're maybe the worst football team I've ever watched, and that counts those Cleveland teams that went a whole season that way.
Hell no, hell no. We watched those Lion teams. No, ain't no way. No, hell no. I refuse to say that. We had the Lions in our division, so I refuse.
I guess. I mean, it is just a prisoner of the moment, but I feel
the
less confident in this Raiders team going out and winning on any given Sunday than I feel about almost
How
any
many
other
wins
team
do
in
you
the
think the
history of
Raiders
the
have
NFL.
right now if they had Tim Couch? My point.
Zero.
Exactly. Let's
Actually, I mean, is Aiden
would
O'Connell
probably
better
have the
than Tim
same
Couch? Is he? Is Gardner Minshew
Gardner. I'll tell you
this
Gardner.
season? Was Gardner Minshew this season better
Now
than
you're
Tim
adding
Couch
words.
at his best?
You're outing words. I don't want you to add words. Don't add those words. You said this season. That's not
Okay,
what I
but
said.
you're only as good as what you're only as good as what you're doing recently. There's a saying for that I tried to nail, but
I'm
I
so
didn't do
glad
it.
there's not a 24-hour camera on me. Like I laugh at inappropriate things all the time. You said is Aiden O'Connell better than Tim Couch? I was like, I mean, no, man. In all seriousness, right? I know we're joking because the quarterback room has been the quarterback room. Shout out to Tashawn Reed as well. Let's go ahead and give him another round of applause. Tashawn did what I wanted to do, and I wasn't gonna tweet it though. But shout out to him for tweeting it. He tweeted every starting quarterback since the Raiders lost Derek Carr. And I told the city of Vegas.
It's looking like that Browns jersey, huh?
I told the city of Vegas, I said, I know you guys are frustrated with Derek Carr. As a person who grew up a Packer fan, the one thing I tell my dad all the time, say what you want. I don't know what a bad quarterback is. You can say whatever you want about us. Great. Cool. I went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, now to Jordan Love. I'm solid. Like I'm straight. Like we are competent there. The Raiders quarterback room since Derek Carr's departure, watching him list every starting quarterback, the wild part was it was Garoppolo.
He's been gone for what, 2
Brian
seasons,
Hoyer.
3 seasons?
Two.
It's
the sad part. He said it was Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer. And meanwhile, he's going like week 7, 2014, whatever it is, right? He's going through. Then when he gets to Garoppolo, it's like Garoppolo again, Minshew again, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden again. And
Ritter next week.
this is insane. Ritter next week. And I'm reading it and I'm like, damn, we've covered this. We've literally had to sit and watch all of this. And it makes me go back to what I told the city of Vegas. Now, the Raiders, you've been through changes. You know what it looks like. The city of Vegas, if you became a football fan, essentially, when the Raiders got here, you may look at Derek Carr and be like, oh, we got one of the worst quarterbacks in it. No, you don't. I don't know what he is now, but you didn't have the worst quarterback in the league. You didn't have it. You didn't have the second worst quarterback, the third, the fourth, the fifth. You didn't have it. What do you have now?
Nothing. But I will say
you have 2 injured quarterbacks.
The Carr marriage probably needed to end regardless.
It did.
Like,
well,
what happened was
I'm gonna actually say it didn't.
I think it did, but I think what happened afterwards is what screwed them more, is the fact that they went for Garoppolo. Like, there were other quarterbacks on the market. Tom Brady was on the damn market. Tom Brady, while Derek Carr, not that season, obviously, but when Brady was a free agent going into the 2020 season, Brady wanted to come to Vegas.
That's why
why do you think he owns the Raiders? He has a relationship with Dana White. He has a relationship with Davis. He has a relationship with Mark Wahlberg. They wanted him here. Vegas is basically Boston Junior in terms of like where these guys are. Like, Dana White's from Boston. He's from Vegas, but he moved to Boston, and like he like ties to both cities. Wahlberg lives in Vegas now. I mean, he's basically the Pope in Boston.
Production company.
Like this place is very Boston coded, and I think that Brady really wanted to be here, and Gruden didn't want him. And if it comes down to having Tom Brady on your team or whoever your coach is, I don't care if Brady's 40 years old or 47 years old, you fire your coach. I don't care. Brady got Bruce Arians to a Super Bowl.
I don't like the way you said that.
I love Bruce Arians.
But what? There's one thing that kept Bruce Arians out of Super Bowls before that, or just from the pinnacle.
Yeah, not having competent offenses, aided then by getting the best quarterback of all time.
With people.
That's fair, but I think those I think those things go hand in hand, kind of, in a way.
I've seen assholes win.
That's fair.
Yeah, man. Speaking of, the Raiders aren't winning very much, right? And this is where we, as much as we're joking about, and this is the interesting part too, because I do feel like when you was like, oh, I probably shouldn't say this as a Raider. I mean, as a Raider beat writer, whatever. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think nobody should say it outside of us or Raider fans. I really do, because first of all, we have to joke through the pain. We got to be in these rooms. We have to, right? We'll be there Monday, and it's one of those situations to where I think back a lot to AP saying at the last press conference of the year after the last game, and he was like, the energy is different around here. Like, he was like, you guys are even smiling more. Like, it's okay to let loose and have fun. I haven't watched this team let loose and have fun in 9 weeks.
No, I haven't exactly seen them tighten up either. But it's been like it doesn't feel like a professional football team. It just doesn't. Like, it feels like a bunch of guys in a boys' club that are going getting together to play football on Sundays. Like, there's not real camaraderie. Like, there's no leadership. Like I hate to say it because I love Max as like a player and even as a leader hypothetically, but the ship is just so rudderless there right now that it's like they're just going there to hang out.
My dad said that, and Dad, can you do me a favor? My phone is about to die. So can you send that to the other phone, please? Relax. My dad said the Cowboys have a horse in the race for the worst team. So,
That's fair.
my dad has to
With
my dad
Cooper
has
Rush,
to,
that's fair.
my dad has to throw his name in the hat, of course. But Gardner Minshew breaks his collarbone. Aiden goes down yesterday, a week after returning to action, right? Desmond Ridder is lined up to be the projected starter this weekend, or Monday, at home against Atlanta. Monday Night Football, 9-game losing streak. You currently own the number 1 overall pick.
I'm shocked they didn't flex that game.
I still think, bro, what's today? Monday? Today's the last day they could do it, ain't it?
They can still flex it.
I think today's the
I
last
thought
day.
they already announced that week, but it could still happen, and I wouldn't be shocked. They must really love coming to Vegas.
They did announce this, what's it called, one early, huh? They announced this Bengals Cowboys flexing. They did that early.
They couldn't flex that game because they have the Simpsons thing.
I thought they flexed it because of the Simpsons thing.
Maybe they did. Maybe that's why. Like, there was something of that. Like, they did something because of the Simpsons, because they're doing like a Simpsons cast.
And going back to the Raider point, you said maybe they like being in Vegas, or we like the storyline of covering the team that's probably going to have the top pick, at the very least top 3 pick.
I mean, that's what
we got draft storyline.
That's what they'll do to salvage it.
I mean,
salvage their appearance, but they don't schedule that game before the season. December 16th, Monday Night Football. You're expecting 2 7-6 teams that are in the wild card race that are probably fighting for their playoff last at this point.
I'm saying why you don't flex it, because you see the possibility to discuss. How many times do you think Shedeur Sanders' name gets mentioned?
All night. But let's also see what other games are this week that could like prioritize over that. Like,
okay. All right. I'm not mad at that. Yo, we could have did this entire 2-hour show on Barry Odom.
Oh, 100%. I have 3 hours on Barry Odom.
I'm gonna say I'm still like fired up.
We can go back to that, honestly, but
like, we, depending on what we have.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty horrible week. Bills Lions, I would say, Bills Lions should be. Should be a Sunday night game. Though.
That's all I'm about to say. Is that not Sunday night?
Nah, it's 4:25.
What's the Sunday night game?
Packers Seahawks.
Oh, we are the Sunday night.
That's not a horrible.
Don't flex. I was about to say, you don't flex that one. You leave that one where it is, Dan.
Yeah, you can't change. I mean, 9-4, 8-5. You can't really change that. Steelers Eagles is a crazy good. Like, there's 3 really good matchups, and then you just got Falcons Raiders on that prime. Oh, it's a double Monday night slate though.
Oh, that's why. What's the other one?
Bears Vikes.
Bro, what are we doing here right now?
They must have flexed that game up though, because there was no way there was 2 Monday night games scheduled this week originally.
They didn't flex this one.
Not the Raiders, but I think they might have flexed Bears Vikings up to like.
That is gross. So Sam Darnold in prime time, I like it.
11-2 though.
I like it. That's why. Darnold in prime time. Speaking of prime time, it's looking like. First of all,
that's on ABC too. So the Raiders have been relegated to ESPN while the Bears Vikes are on ABC.
That's something like that. Would you?
Yeah.
That's what they probably would flex. Swap real quick. You're not putting. With all due respect, I don't think you're putting Desmond Ridder in his 4th Vegas appearance as your Monday night primetime starter for ABC.
Oh
where
hell
everybody
no,
can
no!
see.
They
I
would
just
have.
don't
That
think
would have made. They would have flexed it then.
I'm telling you, I think they or they make a decision and be like, hey, go get Brady.
Yeah. Can Brady even commentate that? Oh no, it's Monday, so he's not.
It's
doesn't
me. He
really
wouldn't do it
run
anyway.
But like hypothetically, if the Raiders are on Fox, can Brady comment that game?
That is a great question.
I
They
don't
would
know.
have to take him off, right? I would think.
I would like ethically. I think you'd have to, right?
Well, they said when he
I mean,
became.
you have Aikman. No, I shouldn't really say that because Aikman doesn't own the team. But I
Right.
mean, like,
I mean, they did say that he couldn't criticize referees.
but he can't. Like,
Yeah, certain things.
like
he
for
can't
other
say.
teams, he
I feel
can't
like
go
he
in
can-
like the meetings. Like he can't
Right.
even like do prep like during the week. Like he has a lot of rules. Like I'm surprised Fox like even followed through with the deal because they're not getting like
What they
he
thought.
can't like do a lot of work.
Hey man, sometimes when you rob Peter, you don't pay Paul. Sometimes you rob Paul too.
Hey, it's a bar.
Sometimes you gotta get to it how you get to it. But I went ahead and did that round of applause, and I'm gonna do it again really quick. Round of applause for rest because the Knights are still resting, right? The Golden Knights needed to rest. The Golden Knights are finally resting, and keep in mind they're resting coming off of a W. The last time that they were last seen, it was here at the Fortress. They took down Dallas, a big time game. If you're here in Vegas, you know how much the Dallas Stars are hated by the Vegas Golden Knights, and probably vice versa as well. 3-2. Captain Mark Stone is back, guys. So I always feel like anytime the captain is in a lineup, anytime the captain is in the building, there's an energy that comes with it. You cover Knights games?
I don't. Not this year.
But you have. I'm pretty sure you've covered.
I did last year. I covered them for the Tribune, but
Now, this is not to be disrespectful to any other athlete, and this is not to be disrespectful to any other coach, whatever, right? There's an energy when I don't know when we're at the AV the Aces games and Mark Davis walks over. We'll dap him up. We'll live talk. There's a difference when Becky Hammond walks in the room. Kind of sit up. There's a little bit of a difference, right? Even when Greg Popovich walks in the room, sit up a little bit. When Mark Stone walks in a room, is there a feeling that you get?
I mean, personally, probably not. But like, I don't know if that.
Not like a personal feeling that you get. I mean, like, is there like a
aura?
And I hate that word because it's
You
so
hate it?
overused. I hate it because it's so overused. But yes,
That's
for lack of a better
the
term,
new meme term.
it's like, bro,
I know what you're
who
saying.
commits to this, right? Who commits to this word, to these words?
I don't know.
But
I
no,
kind of.
But is there like an aura with them? Because again, I just mentioned Bruce Cassidy. I mentioned Becky. I mentioned Mark Davis. I mentioned Mark Stone walks in a room, and I bullshit you not, bro. You know we love to joke, right? We all love to joke.
Yeah.
Certain times, I don't even know if I can make a joke around Mark. I just
feel
be
like that's
bro,
hockey
he's-
players in general. Like
Barry's kind of the same in general.
like hockey players are like. I kind of feel like at first I felt the same way about fighters, but I feel like fighters are kind of like more like loose than you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey players are probably like the most uptight athletes I've dealt with in terms
Really?
of like the media. I believe so, at least. Just
Really? I'm not mad at that.
like I feel like partially too, it's because like just the culture of hockey, it's pretty conservative. Like they don't
I feel
really.
like it's insulated too.
Yeah, it's kind of like it is too. They have like their own language, basically.
Yeah, no, and that's the funny thing. I feel like when Mark Stone is coming out there, I feel like he gives very, very thoughtful answers. I feel like he gives wordy answers. Like you love Mark Stone as a media member, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why I even came up with this. We were interview. I'm never gonna say who it was. We were interviewing somebody in the Knights locker room. Mark was out due to injury. We heard that back door open. We turned and looked. Mark was walking out. I don't know if he had just had treatment or whatever. But he was walking out with his suit or whatever. Had his suit jacket in his hand. I watched everything stop. And it was a moment where I was like, we in the middle of a media scrum. he stopped talking. And it made me be like, yeah, this is a different team when he's on the bench. He doesn't have to say a word, and it's a different
That's
team when he's on
true.
the bench.
That's true.
That's why I asked you that. I watched him walk out. We're doing nothing, bro. That's why it's probably, and if you guys are listening, if you guys are 60% sports fans or less, you may be looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? There's no real way to describe it until you see it. Now, you understand it from a sports perspective. That's the way I'm trying to say from a normal human perspective. If Mike from MaxBet Media walked in right now, we would stop and we would look at him. What's going on? We know him. He may come in and be like, hey, get this light, go, whatever. Get this camera. It may be important for why he's in here. Anytime I notice Mark does anything in that building, everybody just looks. All right, cool. We're going to follow what he did.
That's the captain.
It's the captain, which goes back again to the decision to make him the captain. Back to what Pete said. You want this to be my team? I don't know how to have a team without a captain. We need to have somebody as the leader, as the one that I could point to and be like, see that one? Do that. I remember when I was playing basketball in middle school, and when I first got on the court, I remember somebody was like, I was like 6th grade maybe. Somebody was like, hey, see him? When all else fails, do as he does. And a lot of people may be like, oh, well, that's this, that's that. I don't think there's no better way to teach.
For sure.
Go look at that one. So I say all of that, right? And then the reason why the Knights won this game on ice is their continued power play. Their continued power play. I'm going to be completely honest. You got to take advantage when you have the man advantage, right? And the problem is with the Knights over the last couple of seasons, obviously the power play numbers are what they are. But a lot of times we talk about timeliness, right? When the Knights need power play goals in big games, they tend to not get them. This season, I know we're still fresh into it. Every time this Knights team appears to need a power play goal, with the exception of maybe like 3 that I could think of right now, maybe 2, it goes out and it gets it. And aside from that, Tomas Hertl may be the best player on the power play this season, and I have to go back and do a little bit more research on that. You got anything about this year's Knights really quick, and then I'll get into their added rest. We'll get into the standings, and then we'll get into their next game.
They're better than I thought they would be. I'll say that.
I
thought they'd kind of go flat this season with all the trades and everything in the offseason, but they've been surprising somewhat.
Pardon. Have you paid close attention to them?
No.
Okay, I was about to say, what has surprised you? Because
just the fact that they're winning somewhat consistently, I guess. I don't know. I really haven't followed them this year, to be honest.
No, that's perfectly fine. Because what you're saying, you followed them before, so what you're saying is still kind of spot on. I have a point to make, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it. Logan Thompson axed out.
Yeah, but he's emotional.
Okay. No, I'm not mad at that because I feel like we've seen a lot more that adds to that post VGK days, right? But I'm happy that you said that from the standpoint of, is Aiden not?
That's fair. I think it might be a goalie thing. Like wide receivers are divas in the NFL. Maybe goalies are just divas in the NHL.
And I don't even think, and the funny thing is, I do think cornerbacks are divas, right? Or cornerbacks and wide receivers are divas. But I don't think that's the reason why goalies are sensitive and emotional. I think, unfortunately, to some Knights fans' dismay, it's exactly what Logan Thompson said. When things go right for this team, unless it's a shutout, it very rarely is the goalie is the reason why we had this great game, right? When things go wrong,
it's the goalie. Yeah, that's a
70 to 80% of the time. And like Logan said, respectfully, in Vegas, it's always us. Like it's never, and not to sound like that, but shout out to Matt Raftery. I haven't given him a round of applause either. There's a lot of money locked into that defense. So much so, you locked more in already this year. And we're not even in a new year yet. So I understand Logan's point. Only point that I want to bring up is last time we were here, I talked about Aiden shutout. And I said that's going to be huge for his psyche. I've covered this team. Matt has covered this team. You've covered this team. Isaiah's covering this team. Aiden Hill is emotional.
That's fair.
If you have been around Aiden Hill, you can tell before you talk to him if they won or if they lost. You can look at him and tell. He carries his emotions differently than Logan. He may not tell you guys, get off my ass. It's not my fault tonight. It's y'all fault. But I'm not throwing any shade, right? I look at Bruce. And Bruce is, again, on the top of our list in terms of honest coaches. You want the truth? You go to Bruce Cassidy. He'll tell you in front of the player. And he'll look. Did I say something? Did I lie? That's Bruce. And that's why I love him for, right? Sometimes I hear Bruce say some things sometimes about Aiden. True. All true. Going back to that Joe Budden point that I've brought up before, the three things. Does need to be said. Does need to be said right now. Does need to be said by me. Bruce, does it need to be said? Probably. Does it need to be said by you? Probably. Does it need to be said right now? Please don't do that in front of us. But I understand his point of I call out everybody. And it's sometimes where, and again, this is not recent, right? This is not a recent time. But there was a time in the season where I asked Bruce a question about Aiden. And he was like, hey, he'll be back at Morning Skate tomorrow. He's our guy. Like, we're not turning away from him. And in the back of my mind, I was like, that's the way you might need to talk about Aiden.
Yeah.
That's a professional athlete and that's a grown man. So I'm not saying walk on eggshells around him. But you probably will. Again, I coach middle school basketball. Again, these are middle schoolers. I understand it. There were some middle schoolers. I was like, hey, if you don't pick your damn feet up, if you don't hustle, you about to, all right, come sit next to me. And there were some people that I was like, good effort. I know that you can handle this. Respectfully, I'm not talking about whether Aiden can handle the talk as a man or not. In between them pipes, when the talk gets loud, it wears on him.
That's fair.
That's my only takeaway from watching so far this season. This little 6-day break or whatever the hell it is got me to thinking, you guys are better off trying to attract flies with sugar than, you know?
That's a good point.
My dad is texting me talking about LA Kings. Please get off my line. What's happening? Speaking of, let's talk about it. The LA Kings are looking up at Vegas. Let's talk about it. They're down 4 points as of right now. The Vegas Golden Knights are 18-7-3 on the season. That's good for 39 points. LA isn't the only team looking up, right? The entire Pacific Division is looking up. As of right now, the Knights lead the Pacific Division. The Kings are 4 points back. Vancouver and Edmonton are 7 games back. Winnipeg is next, but it's in Canada. So this is a game I will be watching.
Aren't the Jets like mad good this year?
They are.
They started like historically good, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And the Knights got a dub over them already this year. So credit the Knights. The Knights got a 4-3 victory over them November 29th. And they did it from the Fortress. Now you got to go to Winnipeg.
That's a tough place to play, too.
All Canada games. I've watched this team go to Calgary. I watched this team go to Vancouver. And I'm just like, I don't know the way this could go. But usually the Knights, the funny thing is, in covering this team the past couple of years, like you said, I mean, they usually find a way to pull it out. Usually when I'm talking to people this year, I had maybe one person tell me that they wouldn't go to the playoffs. Everybody else was like, at the very least, we'll go. I don't know what we do when we're there, but we'll go. And then that game is Thursday, December 12th, 5 p.m. Shout out to December 12th because that's my dad's birthday. So shout out to Gang as well. As of right now, Winnipeg is tied for first in the Central. So depending on what happens between now and Thursday, it will be a battle of first place teams. And now we got some basketball stuff to get to, man. And we'll end with some Juan Soto news and we'll get out of here. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's talk UNLV women's basketball first, and then we get to the men. Women's team. You want to give me your thoughts on the women's team so far this year?
I mean, the tougher schedule's definitely done them in. It's probably, I mean, they're going to have to win the conference if they want to. And then typically that's what they had to do anyway, because you're not getting a mid-major berth in the Mountain West women's anyway. But it's going to be even more important this year to win the conference and be strong. But, I mean, they're definitely weaker than the last 2 seasons. And combining that with the schedule they played Baylor yesterday. They got smoked by Oklahoma at home. They played, I think, a few more other power conference teams on the road.
Arizona.
There was another one in there too, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I was here.
Yeah, they have the pieces. They don't have as many pieces as they did before. They have Lindy, of course. I think they'll be fine come conference play, but yeah, they're definitely they went into the fire early this year, which I commend.
So are we doing it? Are we round of applause? I was just here last week, and when it came to UNLV men's, I want to tell you exactly. I don't think you were here. Who was? Was it Markel? It was Markel. Last week when I talked about the UNLV men's team, I talked about the quality of wins versus the magnitude of losses. To me, you said what I said earlier was a bar. What I said Thursday was a bar. Because to me, it's literally the difference between these two programs. Because today, I could do the exact same thing for Lindy if I wanted to. Quality of wins versus magnitude of losses. You just talked about it. Lindy and her squad, 6-3. They got wins over East Carolina, UCF, and I'm gonna just kind of like pull from my memory. East Carolina, UCF, San Diego's in there. They had one that, not gonna lie, respectfully to Kevin Kruger, sometimes I see certain games, the Omahas, right, on the schedule that I look at and I'm like, why the hell are they here? Lindy and her Lady Rebels had one this year. It was Stonehill. It's the only one that had me like, okay.
That's not by me where I grew up, Stonehill, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you where the hell it was. I did the game and it was a Macy Spencer game, which might be. I know, guys, sorry, but talkthattalkradio.com. That might be my favorite story that I've done this season so far. That Macy Spencer game, I think she had 20 points. Her regular season debut, smoked it. I like that story a lot for a couple reasons. But now let's talk about the magnitude of the losses, right? UNLV, the men's side, we'll get to them in a second too, but they've lost to the Memphises, the Mississippi States, Northwest. They lost to some big names. But when you couple it with who they've beaten, it makes you go, oh, I don't like this.
No, not at all. The women's team, I have a little more faith in because they've actually played like Oklahoma was a top 10 team.
Number 9 at the time that they played them.
I mean,
Baylor went to the Sweet 16.
Baylor is a top tier program in women's basketball. They might not be ranked right now, but they're a top tier program. UCF, another power conference program. Kevin and the men's team, they're facing the corpse of a Northwestern team that never got to the tournament historically before Boo Buie was there.
Pause. This is a great question.
Boo Buie went to high school pretty much with me, by the way.
I was just about to ask you that too. But going back to that UNLV point, that Northwest point, you called him a corpse. That's hilarious. Did you ever, going back to the Raider point, did you ever feel like UNLV was going to win?
No, I don't feel like UNLV is going to win most games they play until they go up by 15 points. After what happened against Southern last year in the season opener, after what happened against Air Force, I genuinely do not go to a single UNLV basketball game
and expect
guaranteeing a win. There's some games where I'll go in where I was saying, oh, well, be this. What's going to happen if they lose this? Like, what's my reaction going to be if they lose this? Because I go scorched earth with them because I have no sympathy for that program.
As you should.
They had the world in their hands and they threw it away. So like,
they've had the world in their hands a couple of times. Well, no, they've had the world in their hands once and they threw it away. They could have had the world in their hands a handful of times and they fumbled it.
It's like a pretty girl. They don't want to go up and talk to it because it's like checking your weather app. So that's what UNLV does.
Let me ask you a question. Is UNLV the person trying to go get the number, or is UNLV the pretty girl?
The person trying to get the number, but they're not trying to get the number. They're sitting in the corner twiddling their thumbs because they have social anxiety.
I have an argument. It might be a podcast conversation where they might be the girl.
They're not a very attractive girl.
No, I think they're the really pretty girl.
Really pretty. I don't know about that.
No, I do, but
they might be the one that looks a little better after a few drinks.
And that's where we gotta stop because I can't say what I want to say. I think UNLV is an attractive job until you get to UNLV and you be like, oh, okay. I understand why she was single. I get it. Oh my gosh, bro. God, we need the pod immediately. Okay. Back to the Lady Rebels. I'm so impressed with this group. So going back to what I said before, the quality of wins versus magnitude of losses. That Oklahoma game, no disrespect to Lindy, right? You don't like to laugh after losses, but Lindy walked to the back and you always gauge just the situation. You read the room. Lindy walked back. I'm on my phone, and shout out to Jared Feldman as well. We're sitting here on our phones or whatever. And Lindy was like, "What are you watching?" I looked at her. Said the men's team. She said, "What does it look like?" I told her to score or whatever. She said, "Hopefully, they have a better second half than us." And she was like, "Sheesh." She kind of laughed it off, and I was like, "We'll see." When Lindy came back, again, Oklahoma's a top 10 team, right? Number 9 in the country at the time that they played them. Lindy took it serious, but she did kind of like have moments where she would kind of laugh, or after the post game, she would crack a joke. Lindy looked at me and she said it during the post game presser. They're a top 10 team. They're a premier team. They're this, they're that. Credit them. They were the better team tonight. She looked down. She looked around and was like, "I don't think they're 30 points better than us." I know what the score sheet says, but damn it, I'm bullish. We're not that bad. And the funny thing is, when I talked to Lindy yesterday,
and it was really one bad quarter in the Oklahoma game. Sorry to interrupt, but they got ran off the gym one quarter and they stuck around for the other 3.
It was a 16-0 run to start the third, and that was the issue. So when I speak to Lindy yesterday, you talk about, sorry to cut you off, you're helping with the story. When I talked to Lindy yesterday, I told her, I said, "So Lindy, Arizona happens, right? Second half, you start to kind of see things start to slide. Oklahoma happens, third quarter, the wheels come off." I asked her after that Oklahoma game too, was that the first time she saw this group panic? And she said yes. She said it was the first time. She said, honestly, I don't even know if it was panic. She said they went and made like 2 or 3 baskets in a row. And it was like our belief went away. And like she said, I don't know that I've ever seen that. Like, it looked like we had no shot. And she was like, it's an 8-point game, and they're looking in the huddle like we have no chance. Like, there's still a chance here. By the time she caught the next time out, now the chances are cut in half, right? Now let's get to Baylor. And keep in mind, you beat UCF after that, right? So you still got a power conference win leaving that situation. You get to Baylor. You already know what we're all at being sports fans paying attention to. How do y'all come out? I don't care about the first 2 quarters. How do y'all come out the break? Came out the break, I was like, all right, they got a little something to them. Hits the 5-minute mark of the third quarter. It happens. It happens again. The worst part about this one, and this is where me and Lindy had the conversation, the spurt at the end of the third quarter was maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Ugly. All hell broke loose. Just bad basketball, right? Lindy says she's happy about the way her team responded. You get to the fourth quarter, you cut it down to 1 with 150 left in the game, you have a shot. I told Lindy, let's talk about the responses before. Baylor opened the second quarter on an 8-0 run. UNLV went and took the lead after that. This UNLV team has impressed in losses.
Yeah.
It's one game this year. I joked with Lindy after that game. I know you don't like to throw away game film, but it's Oklahoma game. How you gonna watch it? And she was like, I'm not throwing it away. You just said it. I don't throw away game film unless we need to. But I think Lindy's thrown away maybe one. Well, she told us. I don't think she threw it away. But I think she might have told us she's thrown away one. That Oklahoma game, she kind of laughed and was like, it's gonna be painful to watch. We will be in here in the morning watching this film. Like, it's got to happen. And I think, if I recall correctly, too, Lindy goes home and watches film. And then she wakes up that morning and she watches it again with the team. Lindy's a freak, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
I believe it.
I talked to Dan sometime and I'm like, that was my favorite part of our interview, my interview with Dan Cunningham. I said, dog, I'm not her husband. I see Lindy sometimes away from the court. And I look at Lindy. You're thinking about basketball. And he looked at me and was like, dog, she'll get in bed. And I'll look at her and be like, cut it off. Cut it off. Nope. That up there, turn it off. Nope. That's why, like I said, if she wanted to put this university right here, if there's anybody who's earned the right, it's that one.
For sure. But again,
I also don't think that makes everybody feel the best.
That's also true.
For whatever reason. But sorry guys, my fault. Don't fault me. Will can yell at me if he needs to. But last thing on the Lady Rebels, this 6-3 team will continue their 3-game road trip. They're headed to Illinois. What's that? Monday, yeah. No, they're not there. They're headed to Illinois for back-to-back games against DePaul and Northwestern. So they're going to Chicago first, and then they will go ahead and take on Northwestern. I talked to Lindy really quick too about is it 5? I think it's 5 players from Texas on the roster, 3 starters, right? And Lindy's good for that. That first week of December, that second week of December, they're scheduling huge games, but a lot of times, if you guys are able to pay attention to it, there was a trip to Oklahoma State as well. I think there was one player from Oklahoma State, or from Oklahoma rather. And Lindy was like, it's the only opportunity she's going to get to play in front of her family. So I scheduled them for that reason alone. That's the type of mind that Lindy is. When I seen that they went to Texas, didn't register. Nothing registered. Night before the game, I see everybody out playing laser tag. So this is why this group wins. I thought back to high school. Shout out to Ed Azam, right? At Westchester High School. Coach Azam was our dean. Westchester High School, synonymous with winning, right? Basketball championships left and right. Shout out to Coach, because that's where I learned a lot of the basis for what I do now, just from him granting me access. That was the first coach that let me come in locker rooms at halftime and after games.
That's fire.
And he was the one coach, like, shout out to him. Shout out to everybody at Cerritos, because they didn't kick me out. But Ed was the only one who, I've never called him Ed. Coach Azam was the only one who, when we were in the room, like, let's say it's an ugly first half, he would walk in sometimes. He would walk in and he would get ready to talk, and he would be like, get out. I know where this is going. And I'll just be on the other side of the door. And I know, I just hear it. I don't even need to put my ear up. What'd you kick me out for? You're screaming. Like, I can hear everything. I said that to say, Coach Azam, we had a state championship in Sacramento. They get to Sacramento early. This man takes the team to Alcatraz.
That's a coaching lesson.
He said, this is just to show you guys you're playing for a state championship in 2 days. Like, appreciate what you have. Like, one false move. And I thought back to it and was like, when I was talking to Lindy, I thought back to it and was like, that's why Coach Azam won so many titles. It's bigger than basketball. And like Lindy said too, and I thought her answer was amazing. Maybe I'll actually, and I don't even like doing this very often, but maybe I'll clip this answer. Maybe I'll put it out there, because I think it's that heartfelt. Like she said, I'm getting these women for a portion of their lives. Basketball is a segment of my time with them. The rest of it, memories that we got to remember for the rest of life. So shout out to Lindy for that, man. Let's talk about UNLV and why they should probably, or the men's team, and why they should probably go to Alcatraz or go to the Spring Preserve or something.
That'd be a suitable punishment,
bro. I meant to get motivated. Damn it! Like I didn't say to stay. Like I'm not condemning them. Although people are condemning Kevin Kruger, right? And let's just start there. You got it. I think we talked for maybe like 10 minutes before the show started about UNLV and Kevin Kruger. Have at it, man. It's plenty of different entry points.
This is it. I mean, this is his last rodeo. I think that's pretty clear. I think he was on a short leash coming into this season, and with the talent he had, I think this season makes the last season look even worse in hindsight, knowing that the talent we had last season, knowing that we don't have it this year, and that even this season coming into the offseason, they're hyping up this class like, oh, it's something. Like, no, we don't have two boom brothers like we have last season. We just don't. Bear Cherry's great. Bear Cherry's not carrying this team where they need to be. DJ is not as good as he was last year in terms of the way he's performing. Is he a better player all around? Yeah, sure. He's not as consistent as he was last year, and part of the reason why he was so consistent last year is because he had the Boone brothers around him down the stretch. Not in the beginning, and they looked horrible in the beginning, albeit down the stretch they looked great because they had that whole team around him. Older than him, he wasn't the leader. He was 17 years old, and he had a group of guys around him that were 22, 23 years old that were nurturing him and he could lean on. Now, he's 18 years old, still the youngest player in the locker room pretty much, and he's the leader. Like, he's a great player, but he's still like immature in the sense that he's like an 18-year-old kid.
He said it before. I think Kevin even said it. He's still learning how to lead a group of men. You're bringing in a 5th-year, 6th-year senior. Dog, he's 22. Like, I got to tell him that he's not hustling hard enough.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to do that. Like, I'm learning how to get to that point, right? And one thing that you said, and the funny thing is, I think I'm just going to like softball pitch you these topics. And I'm just going to because I got like 7, and I'm just going to let you kind of just go from there. But I said it before. I said my takeaway from the Northwestern game, aside from me never really feeling like they had a shot, which is why I think that story was probably like one of the blandest of the season, because I was just like, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what they said, here's what they said, and then it's over. Because it didn't teach me anything, right?
It's like they're a very cut and dry basketball team. If they have the personnel to win, they'll win. If they don't, they aren't. They're not going to pull any wins out of their heart. Like,
personnel is important.
Like last season, they beat San Diego State. They pulled that win out of their heart.
They did.
They beat teams like even that loss against Utah State at the end. Like, they were pulling that one out of their heart. Like, they were pulling games out of their heart. This season, it's like they're not going to win a game against a team that's better than them all season.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Like, they just don't.
I will say this, because that Northwestern game taught me this. It was Northwestern, I think. Maybe it wasn't Northwestern. What was the one right before Northwestern? The other one, they got smoked. What was it? Mississippi State.
That was a really damning game to me, because I covered Mississippi State yesterday.
Okay.
They faced Prairie View A&M. Prairie View A&M, if you don't know, is one of the worst basketball teams in Division I. They're 1-8 this season. They haven't won a single game against a Division I opponent. Their one win is against the College of Biblical Studies, who is NAIA, so it's not even NCAA. Prairie View A&M had a 15-point lead against Mississippi State in the first half yesterday.
UNLV lost by 30.
They were tied with them at halftime. They took a lead with them. They took a 65-66 lead with about 10 minutes to go. This is Prairie View A&M. Again, one of the worst programs in Division I. Mississippi State was ranked for that game, albeit this is a team that showed you that against the worst team in Division I, they will have their back against the ropes. A program like UNLV that thought they had tournament aspirations this year lost by 30 to them. That should make you want to throw up if you're a UNLV fan.
That game, aside from what you just said, that game taught me this. And I've said this before.
Yeah, like, one more thing.
Have at it.
You have a program like New Mexico State come in.
Yeah.
We beat them, right?
Yep.
How much better did we look than New Mexico State?
I know.
Program to program.
I know. The Omaha. Never mind.
Omaha. No, say it.
No.
Say that.
Mm-mm. 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 because this is why you shouldn't schedule teams like that.
Then it's true, but it's damning. And that's why I said, and I actually agree with that wholeheartedly. And I said this before, schedule up. Schedule Kansas, schedule Duke, schedule all these teams, schedule North Carolina. You know why? Because you're going to lose anyway. Okay, so lose the game and look good. Lose the game and give us something to give me a reason to buy a ticket if I'm a fan. I do not want to go see UNLV have a 6-point win over the University of Omaha. What am I going to tell my kids about the University of Omaha? I'm not going to remember that
alma
game.
mater. That's it. That's
A couple of years ago, I watched these guys open the season against Gardner Webb. Yep. You see them open the season against Southern, and they lose. Like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, they were playing UNC at Orleans Arena, number 1 in the country. They won that game. Was that like 2010, 2011? Like, we're not so far removed from these games where they feel like ancient times. And now you have this program, and some days they don't even feel like they're Division I. I'm just being honest. Like, and they were 10, 15 years away from this team being a marquee name in college basketball.
Now, that Mississippi State game told me because I always felt like, and I still feel this way, I don't care what anybody says, Bear Cherry is the type of, first of all, the name, the attitude, the attitude on court, I should say, right? And him as a player, as a person, I should say, that's the type of energy that the entire country gets behind around tournament time, right? I don't know what college
he's a star. He could be a star.
You know what it is in terms of him, just from watching him.
Like a DJ Burns.
Which is what I compared him to, right? The reason why I bring that up is because I watched that Mississippi State game. I watched him go down with a tweaked back, and I said, oh, this team is exactly what I thought. This team has zero shot without him. I don't even know what the shot is with him, but without him, you don't have one.
And I think that speaks to why I think maybe, I hate to say this, I think DJ might have been a little overrated by this fan base and by some of the media members. I heard people talking about DJ like he was one of the best UNLV basketball players of all time. There was questions legitimately raised about whether or not he was one of the top 3 or 5 running rebels ever. Of a
3 or 5 running rebels
by legitimate sports writers.
Top 3 or 5 might come from the same team.
Yeah, I know. And then the next 5, and then the next 5 after that come from the 92-93 team that got the record wiped from history.
And then Bryce Hamilton is somewhere up there. He might not even.
Bryce,
no disrespect
all
to
due respect to Bryce.
See, we disagree here.
He's top 10.
Oh, okay.
Like tail top 10 maybe, but like I don't. Maybe like
DJ
10 and 15. I would give him that.
To me, DJ
conservative, but like
improvement this season wasn't gonna be gauged by stats for me.
It was gonna be gauged by wins and leadership.
Well, see,
but I haven't seen that.
You can add that as the caveat because you're absolutely right. You second year, sophomore year, coming off an NIT bid, we're gonna judge you by wins. You're the point guard. You think Kevin?
Not only that, you're an NBA prospect.
Well,
regardless of what you have around you, you should be leading this team to wins in these games.
Here's the thing, and this is where a lot of NBA teams guys that have made it to NBA teams from UNLV over recent years will tell you too. Nobody expects UNLV to win. So because of that, how do you look in those games where you don't? Going back to what you said about Lindy LaRock and her Lady Rebels compared to what the men look like in wins against Omaha, UNLV just lost to Stanford on the women's side, and they might have gained more stock, right? So my point in bringing that up is if you take DJ's game this year, for me, I talked to Kevin Kruger about it. His pace is much different. So just from that, he's still an underclassman. So from that perspective alone, you're gonna get your pace together. He's getting fouled at a much higher rate, which means they haven't figured you out. They still can't figure you out. I think the man has actually gotten better from that standpoint.
That's why
unfortunately, it just hasn't yielded what you want.
He polishing and like as a player as a whole, he is a better player than he was last year. But he doesn't have the cast around him and the nurturement around him for really like make it worthwhile. And it's going to look worse. It's going to look worse this season, even if he is better than he was last season, because he doesn't have. He's not going to look as good because he's not going to be able to ditch it to the Boone brothers, and he's not going to be able to have Whaley peak health slamming over everyone.
Scratch all of that. Scratch all of it. He doesn't have that right now. Rob is hurt. And I've said that before too. Rob being your own, this is why I said what I said about Bear. Rob being your only anchor in the paint isn't going to work.
No.
Now, going back to what you said about DJ, you said it twice. He's not protected, right?
I
As
wouldn't
much
say
as I go-
protected. It's
No.
just like
You're saying nurtured, but
Nurtured, yeah, but
there's
like-
there's a protection that comes with that. And the
Fair
reason
enough.
why I'm getting a little irritated now is because as much as I come to his defense, and if you guys listen to the show, you know where I'm going. This is why I can't defend Kevin in that regard, right? Because in terms of nurturing, respectfully, I know this is apples and oranges, possibly. Let's just say Mike Woodson was in here. Maybe that's the wrong person to use because he might not nurture anybody. But let's just say a Mike Woodson was in here and he identified we don't have any guys on this roster that's going to take DJ under his wing and say, even though you're the leader, you need this. You need some guidance with this. You need some da-da-da-da. I think back to what Matthew Raftery said when we lost Carlin Hartman. And he said, guys, the locker room, they're going to hurt by this. They're going to hurt like emotionally right now. And then later down the line, they're going to hurt because that's the one who held them accountable. And that, again, we're talking about quotes and things that never left our mind. Matt said that 2 seasons ago. We were still at UNLV when he said that. When Carlin Hartman said, hey, Knights fans, I don't know why. I don't know what the hell y'all problem is, but Jack Eichel was one of the best in the world. Not really the time to boo him. You know, I like a little arrogant. Some of the UNLV fans was like, you worry about fixing the basketball team. You shut up. You don't worry about what we got going over here. And that's when Matt was like, I know you guys like to fight back. We're going to lose him one day. And when we do, you're going to notice a different team. Carlin took the job at Florida the next week. Let's compare where the Florida Gators are right now to the UNLV Rebels.
much better.
And it's just from that standpoint alone, right? If you have a coach who does the nurturing, going back to the Bruce Cassidy point, clearly somewhere down the line when he said, hey, Aiden's our guy, he's still talking about Aiden to the media openly, but it's a little different than if Shea Theodore misses an assignment. Shea knows better than that. He'll do it with Aiden, but I notice it's really particular when he does it with Aiden. I've told you guys this before. My biggest issue with Kevin Kruger, respectfully, I've talked to people who played against him. The words that they used when speaking about Kevin, a normal person would think that it's offensive. As an athlete, he called me what? He said I was what? He said I was a pain in the what? Feisty, asshole, pest, all of those words. Respectfully speaking, I have asked for it. When I saw Kevin Kruger go off on one of the refs last year, I might have texted you. Maybe it wasn't you, it was somebody else, but
no, it was after. I remember I texted you after the post-game interview.
The halftime,
and he freaked out, and I was like,
"Fam,
I was like, I needed to see that.
This is what we need." And if you notice, it's sporadic,
and it felt like it was too little, too late for me.
I'm not even gonna feel like it was too little, too late. But you know what? It doesn't happen when it needs to happen.
That's fair. That's probably a better.
That's the issue. So for me, after that, was it the Memphis game? Hell no. It was one of them games. Might have been the Omaha game where they barely skated by at first. And they had to pull away toward the end. Whatever it was one of those games where I was like, Kevin, if you don't come in here and be like, hey, we got Northwestern coming up, we can't play like this or they're gonna kill us. Kevin came in and was like, I think we got some nice things to build on.
That's what he does. That's the worst part about it to me. Every single time there's a loss like this, even after the goddamn Air Force game last year, there was never. Sometimes it has to be doom and gloom. I'm sorry. Sometimes you have to panic. Sometimes it's not. Everything's not okay. Like sometimes you have to freak out. And you know how things get fixed? Anxiety fixes things.
It does.
Stress fixes things. You know what? You know when you get the most shit done? Sorry to swear. You know when you get the most stuff done? And when you're thinking all night, damn, you know how much stuff I have to do tomorrow? You know what I like when you can't sleep because you know you got to get up and keep ticking? And that's what you got to be as a coach, and he's not.
And then you lock in. And as much as I love Kevin Kruger, like I said before, the one thing that I feel like has been missing from his tenure here is attitude. I feel like we've needed, and not just like that either. He had the perfect springboard coming off of TJ. UNLV, let's just say TJ was trying to spark the lighter. Him leaving was rain all over the lighter. Kev, we need a spark. So not to sound like that, but when Kev came in and was kind of I don't even know if I've ever seen Kevin in the suit. I probably have, but he came in kind of like I said. What I viewed him as was we all watched random little MTV movies, right? Little MTV horror films. You watch a little high school horror film. You could point at the high school quarterback. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be you. You look at Kevin and you see him on the sideline and you be like, "Oh, of course it's a college basketball coach." UNLV, oh, that makes sense. We don't need that. Things were better when Carlin Hartman was pulling people by the jersey and yelling.
Yeah,
It was better. Like, we needed that. You wasn't getting smoked by Air Force when Carlin Hartman was out there. It wasn't happening. So we got to move on now. But now, again, your chances, that's where I'll end it with. Your chances are gone. I told my dad going into the Creighton game, because I was like, they're not going to win this one. I said, here's the deal. I said, UNLV missed every opportunity. And I didn't think they would do it. They missed every opportunity in non-conference to pick up what I continue to talk about in these post-game pressers: resume building wins.
Oh, throw about the resume. If
you don't beat New Mexico or San Diego State during the regular season, it's kaput.
It's kaput anyway if they don't win the conference. The Mountain West is Mountain West is a 1 or 2 bid lead this season.
Easily.
This whole
you said this season. Sorry.
Six bids last season. That's long. That's history. Like that will never happen again after what they did.
You think it's two bids?
Tops.
You think so?
Boise and San Diego State.
I got to go back and look at Utah State.
They're decent, but they're not. The Mountain West isn't strong enough this year where teams are going to be able to survive cannibalizing themselves like they did last year.
It is going to be a buzzsaw. It's going to be a buzzsaw in the Mountain West.
So there's going to be, I think Boise's going to rise to the top, and obviously San Diego State, or maybe it won't be San Diego State. Maybe it will be a Utah State, or maybe it will be like Colorado State, but they don't look great. Like even Nevada, like these teams in every team, not just UNLV in the Mountain West, all these Mountain West teams look horrible non-conference.
And by the way, Leon Rice and Brian Dutcher are the head coaches of the two teams that you just named.
The two best coaches of the Mountain West.
I don't know that I'm not even gonna lie to you. I only heard Leon Rice's regular voice during one of the Mountain West championship post-game pressers. And I heard him speak, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I've only seen him yell for 4 years. Brian Dutcher. I watched San Diego State open that game against Fresno State without a bucket for 5+ minutes. All Brian Dutcher did was scream on the sideline about defense. All he did was scream.
If you watch like a Brian Dutcher like press conference,
I love Brian Dutcher, dog.
Oh, he's a gem, but he's just like one of those old school college basketball, like just coaches in general, where it's just like rigid and like that's what you need in sports. You need hard line coaches like that, like you said. Enough of the soft stuff.
I would invite Dutch to my cookout and pay Dutch to sit. Actually, I would pay him in liquor. I would put whatever he wants in a cooler. Just stand by the cooler and talk to me while I cook. That's it. That's it. Just give me basketball stories.
Yeah.
Just give me basketball stories. I'll take him and Eric Musselman.
That's true.
I know people from UNLV hate Eric Musselman, but y'all missed the chance to bring him here. That's your fault. Speaking of UNLV men's, the men's squad has lost 3 straight games. They're 4-1. They're 4-4 on the year after starting 4-1. Going back to what Markel Collins said prior to this season starting, he said first 8. He looked at me. He said, "T." He said, "I need 6-2, 7-1, something." He said, "I need something where we gotta smack the college basketball world in the mouth early." Markel came to me about a week ago and was like, 4-3, really? We're 4-3. I don't know, fam. I don't know what to tell you.
No, I mean, just even the wins, like they weren't impressive.
Let's go to the quality of wins and magnitude of losses. Talk about it, and then we got to move on.
They opened the season with a 14-point win against Alabama State.
And
let's look at who Alabama State has, how they've done just moving forward. A couple weeks ago, Alabama State lost by 30 points to SMU. They did beat Omaha, so good for them. They lost by 20 points to Akron.
They beat Omaha by more than we did.
They did. They beat Omaha by 18 points. We beat Omaha by 11.
Can we move on? I don't want to do this anymore. I thought I did. I don't want to do this anymore. I changed my mind. I changed my mind. Because you know what's funny? I changed my mind only because I don't defend anybody. I don't, right? I defended AP this year. The last coach that I defended was Kevin. I can't tell you another coach that I feel like I defend, right?
Yeah.
This Kevin Kruger one is getting harder and harder.
Oh,
bro.
I mean, I last season, I will not lie, I was one of the bigger proponents of him getting fired throughout the season. But then the end of the season came, and I saw how they ended it, and I saw how they got things together toward the end of Mountain West play, and I said, you know what? Fine. He can do. I'll give him one more year.
Fine don't sound like you gave in, by the way. Fine is like whatever. You guys.
It was I guess an acceptance of the circumstances that I know that we're not just gonna go out there and like grab a high key like gem of a coach. So it's kind of just like, what do we got? We got Kruger. Okay, we were, all things considered, a few bad losses away from being an NCAA tournament team last season.
Right.
If we fire him, are we going to end up better or worse than we are? And I thought at the end of that, in March of last season, the answer was worse.
Worse, right?
Today, I don't think it can get worse. I'll just be honest. I like it can, like, hypothetically
You
it
can
can.
start losing these games that you're. I mean, you could have Southern happen more frequently.
And think about when Southern happened. It happened in the season that was the best season. The peak of Kruger basketball was last season. The best UNLV looked under Kevin Kruger was at their peak last season. And in that same season, they suffered two of the worst losses in the past decade of the program. It's just not a very redeemable resume, and it's not going to be very redeemable at the end of the season either.
I don't go into UNLV men's basketball season openers feeling good. Going back to Oakland, going back to Southern, going back to Alabama State, I'm literally Gardner Webb. I'm nervous every season opener for the men's team. I just feel like a letdown always happens.
I wasn't until Southern, really. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm newer here, but like seeing that game, I think that was my first game covering UNLV basketball, because like I never.
So that's your Howard story. My first UNLV game that I've ever covered was Howard, I promise you. And I stood on the sideline and I stared at the scoreboard when everything was done, and somebody walked by and they were cleaning up the field and they looked at me and was like, "Must be new."
Yeah.
And I never understood it. I just looked at it. That was my first experience. And I was like, and obviously I'm new to the school and everything, but I ended up asking somebody, I was like, hey, somebody just said this outside. Like, they looked at me and was like, oh, yeah, they're just saying like Howard doesn't always happen, right? But no, we do this.
Oh, yeah.
We lay eggs. And I just looked at him. And I went and called somebody from my Cerritos college football team and was like, I don't know if I could do this. I'm coming from Cerritos College where we 10-2 every year. Like, which bowl game we in? That's every year. Like, worst case scenario, we got to worry about Johnny Stanton when he was a Saddleback. Like, that's what we had to worry about. Like, that's not what I walked into. I definitely, coming from Westchester to Cerritos to UNLV, you think I expected the basketball program to be? I didn't hop from basketball elite to basketball fucking, I don't want to call it powerhouse, but basketball mainstay to UNLV.
And UNLV is supposed to be the mainstay.
UNLV is supposed to be a mainstay. I don't know what the hell.
I'm from New York, right? Like, you think, but I honestly feel like coming to UNLV, it feels smaller than it is. Like the fact that I go to UNLV now, it feels more local to me. But like growing up in New York, I had no ties to Las Vegas. I was a upstate New York kid through and through. I knew what UNLV was. I had a UNLV hat. I had a UNLV shirt. I had a UNLV sweatshirt. Not because I liked UNLV or I had any specific connection to UNLV. But they were one of those brands. They were one of those brands that you'd see in Champ Sports and those college T-shirts. They were one of those brands you'd see in the mall on the sweatshirts. They're not anymore.
That's the sad part.
They were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I could go to any mall in the country and buy a UNLV shirt. They were mass producing the damn things because UNLV was culturally important. UNLV is still, the name is still rings bells culturally, even though they don't mean anything now. When I told people I was going to UNLV in New York, they're like, wait, that UNLV? Like,
yeah, and people
basketball UNLV? Like,
we're going to be in here all day. We got to stop. But you're absolutely right? Because people ask me the same thing and be like, oh, wait, no way.
Especially like my brother was born in 87. Right?
Okay. Mine's 89. I like it.
I was born in 2000, so I'm way younger. But like I grew up around a bunch of people who grew up in the 90s.
Right.
Like UNLV was like Duke to them. Like UNLV UNLV was like a powerhouse. Like it was like they look at UNLV as like an elite school just because like what the basketball program once was. That rang bells forever.
Well, you just talked about it. People are asking
And
you which school you're going to, or you'll tell them I go to UNLV or I went to UNLV, whatever the case may be. And they'll be like, oh, wait, no way. Like you said, it still has its cultural currency.
And I feel
And
like
then the next question immediately after is like, oh, you went to UNLV. What's the basketball team doing?
yeah, shit.
16 and 15. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to say? I don't.
And it felt like with the football team this year, and I think that's why I've been so grateful for the football team and what they did, and Barry too. Even though I'm a little salty at you, Barry, I'm not gonna lie, but I accept the decision and I respect it, and I'm not surprised. But I will say part of the reason why football was so special is because it made people feel like 90s again. It made people feel like UNLV mattered again, and that's all we want. We don't need to win national championships. We don't even need to go to the damn tournament every year. Get us to the tournament once every few years. Get us a college football playoff team, a worthy team, once every 5, 10 years. That's all we want. Keep this brand relevant in America. That's all we need. Because
Let us have.
If this brand remains relevant in America, look at where Vegas is as a city. Like Vegas has eclipsed UNLV in a way that it never had historically before in terms of a destination, in terms of a sports destination, I should say. It's no longer taboo. It's no longer like the black sheep in America in terms of sporting events and hosting sporting events here. And the fact that UNLV wasn't able to capitalize that and instead got drowned out by it, I think is a great tragedy. But hopefully they can figure it out.
Hopefully they can figure it out before Saturday, December 14th, because that's their next game. They will take on Pacific, 7:30 p.m. That'll be the first home game for the program since November 23rd. That's pre-Thanksgiving. But two quick topics to get. Well, one we're gonna broach. We're not gonna fully delve into it because there's a lot of details to that contract. But I do want to touch on the Golden State Valkyries expansion draft. Natalie Nakase now has her squad. I don't believe she's done with her squad, right? But she has her squad. Biggest name of note, if you're a Las Vegas Aces fan, we talked about who would leave, right? And who would be the possible person that's gone. And Kate Martin is that person. A lot of people didn't want to hear that. A lot of people are upset about what could be, you know what I mean? Things of that nature.
Oh,
But I'm gonna be honest. Hold on, we don't know what could obviously come of it. Now, I'm not gonna get to the 6 that were protected because at the end of the day, like we've said before, the core 4 isn't going anywhere. Your starting 5, 9 times out of 10, isn't going anywhere. 6th player of the year. You have a player like Kia who is Asia has said it.
there was players better than Kate that didn't get protected. Let's keep that a buck.
Wait, but
there's 4. They're core 4.
Hold on. Before we even go there, I want to touch on the what could be part, right? And I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is no shot at anybody else. It's more of just boosting up one person in particular. It would have been more painful. Sorry, Vegas. It would have been more painful to watch Kirsten Bell go somewhere, which still might happen, go somewhere like a Dallas and watch her cook. Becky said it last year. She loves KB. KB can go. KB's a gamer. She loves what she brings. KB was hurt 70% of last season. And then when KB was healthy prior to that, similar to Jason Tatum on the Team USA, where are you going to plug her? Respectfully to Kate Martin, I think that one would have been a little more painful. It would have been painful to watch Sydney Colson go be the spark plug for another championship run for, I don't know, Chicago.
I don't think Kate was painful at all, really. I mean, it was tough to see her go.
Have you seen this fan base? Didn't I tell you if this is a podcast, it would be called The Sky is Falling?
That's just because these new women's basketball fans, they're like they see the whole Caitlin Clark wave, and they're just like that. Like these Aces fans, they got their proximity to it. I'll say a lot of these Aces fans online, like the ones from South Carolina, they're nuts, dog. They do not give a shit about Kate Martin. They'll ride for Asia no matter what.
Of course.
And they honestly are probably glad Kate's gone because that gets the Iowa stench off the team. But I will say,
like this man of Vegas.
Who do they? If you're not gonna you got to protect the core 4, right? You got to protect Tip, right? you got to protect.
Well,
Like
you said right.
Alicia, like
do you want my answer on that tip one?
you don't think so?
I've said it before, respectfully. The Ace, the last 3 seasons, the Aces have been investigated for 3 straight seasons, right? For me, especially if I feel like I didn't do anything none of those 3 times, what's one more investigation? I tell Tip to retire. Didn't I pull you out of retirement?
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's a good point. That's
I
a good
tell
point.
Tip to retire. She's not on our roster. I ain't got to protect nobody. Tip is gone.
Come back, yeah.
I will come get you in 2 months. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I think
I would have pulled that plug quick.
Tip kind of did their hand in there because she said all season, "No, I like basketball again. I don't want to retire." So
I still would have been like, she retired. AC, no disrespect.
AC, I don't think they should have protected AC. I think they should have. If hypothetically, I would have protected K over AC because AC is 36, gonna be 37.
Right.
Part of the reason why AC
is the person that you put on Breanna Stewart in the finals.
That's fair, I guess. But I mean, we're not. I don't know if we're gonna get to
this team is deep. That's what I'm saying. You almost have.
Like you almost need to like expense that to replace it with a younger piece that can provide more on both ends of the floor. Because part of the reason they were so lackluster at times this season was because they didn't have like a post threat outside of Asia. They didn't have the Liz Cambage. They didn't like they need a. They don't need another guard. They need a 5 or a 4 that can complement Asia and take the load off her in the paint, so that Asia can play the face-up game that she thrives in the best. Asia's not. She gets compared to Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was a post-up power forward. Asia's not a post-up power forward. Asia plays face-up for the most part. She'll post up at times, but she plays face-up more often than not.
I say that her resume. I don't. When she's done playing basketball, I say that I compare resumes to Tim. I compare her resume to Tim. I think she's going to have one of the best basketball resumes that we've ever seen when it's all
100%.
Which is similar to Tim.
Her and Breanna Stewart, if you look at both their resumes,
they're identical.
They're the 2 greatest basketball players of all time. And not only that, men or women, they're 2 of the top 5 most accomplished basketball players of all time. Men or women. That counts Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, LeBron.
Wherever they go. That's what's important to me. Internationally, in their field.
And that's part of it why. College counts in these achievements. International counts in these achievements. Breanna Stewart won 4 national championships.
Matters. Bigger than that, like I said before, going back to that AC point, AC is somebody who you need to defend. Like, you need somebody to defend. And respectfully, we've seen it. When Jewel Lloyd comes to town, she has fits in this building for whatever reason. 4 for 16, 5 for 20, whatever. Jackie's on her. Jackie, go look at Jackie in those games where you're asking Jackie to be the primary defender on somebody. Jackie has 6 points. And I've had people tell me, oh, but Jackie doesn't show up in some games. Jewel has 6 too. There's a trade-off. If you want Jalen Williams from the NBA, from OKC, to give you 22 points, I'm sorry. Maybe he shouldn't guard Brown tonight.
But you see how that worked this season, and you see that it didn't.
That's why I don't think letting go AC is gonna help.
Professional basketball, all things considered, in the regular season is not a very defensive game. It's an offensive game. So I think, honestly, they would have been better served trading off that defensive advantage to get a better offensive piece.
To keep the offense.
But, I mean, if the discussion is, I mean, you raise a good point why you would keep her over Kate Martin, hypothetically. So I guess I could concede that. But, yeah, I mean, I still think there's more pieces they should be.
Bigger than that, I think we can both agree that this Aces team is going to look different next season. Kate obviously isn't going to be here. Kate Martin is gone. You got Tyler Marsh in Chicago. You got Natalie Nakase with the Golden State Valkyries. What about the GM? Natalie Williams is no longer with the group as well. This goes all the way down to the communication staff, guys. I've said his name a million times here. We knew it. At least a couple of us kind of knew behind the scenes, maybe a couple of weeks prior to that email being sent out. But round of applause to my guy, Jiggy Maxwell, as well. If you get the chance to see Jiggy and you catch him in his element, ask Jiggy to show you his 3 championship ring. It might be more than, I think it's 3. His championship rings lined up, because he said his Detroit ring is what it is, right? His Aces ring from 2 seasons ago was like double that. And we were kind of joking and was like, if you guys win again, what happens? Like, you got to go bigger than that. Talk to Jiggy about the upsize in rings. He will tell you, from the Detroit Shock days to that back-to-back Aces ring, This thing is otherworldly. But obviously the elephant in the room that we didn't get to just yet. Juan Soto, $765 million to join the Mets. I did tell Markel, who was a Yankee fan, I told him, you got to do whatever you can to try to keep Juan Soto. I said, because there would be nothing worse. And I don't know if I spoken into existence or what happened, but I said there would be nothing worse than losing in the World Series to the Dodgers and then watching Juan Soto go become a Met.
He could have went to the Dodgers.
You know what? And this is something I don't think people have talked about either. I think Juan Soto had everybody thinking that they were a shot, right? It was a possibility. Juan Soto strikes me as one of those players that I do think money was like Manny Machado, right? Money was huge, but I feel like there was a part of him when he was a National. I worked for Dodgers Nation at the time. Mad series and moments with the Dodgers, right? You go to the Padres. Who ends your season? The Dodgers. You go to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Who ends your season? The Dodgers. I told my dad, with all due respect, I think in the back of his mind, I'm going to go sit with all of these teams. I'm gearing up to beat the Dodgers. I think Juan Soto was tired of seeing the Dodgers. I do.
Yeah.
I think he sees them in his dreams.
I mean, a lot of my friends are Yankee fans, obviously, come from New York. I mean, most Mets fans, like, Mets are big in the city, I would say, and the Yankees are big everywhere else.
Okay.
But, like, not a lot of Mets fans live upstate. There's still a good chunk. Like, still a second. I'd say they're the third most popular team behind the Red Sox. So it's Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, I would say. But all that aside, my Yankee fan friends are all like on Juan Soto, like, oh, you didn't take $10 million less to be a Yankee, or oh, you're passing up the Yankees, the pinstripes. Like, the pinstripes don't mean what they meant 20 years ago. They don't mean what they meant 50 years ago. They don't mean what they meant 100 years ago. Money talks. Juan Soto's a mercenary. Juan Soto was never a loyal Yankee. Juan Soto was not even a loyal National, to which he won a World Series at 19 years old as the best player. Wasn't loyal in San Diego. He's made it clear every step of the way that he wants the highest paid bidder. He wants the highest paid bidder. He's going to go to that place, and he's going to hit 45 home runs there.
I actually think he might have been more committed to San Diego because them being like an underdog. I think he was more so like, Yankees, you'll figure it out. Nationals, probably shouldn't have been here, no way. He was probably looking at San Diego like, I think we can build something here. And once they didn't,
it's also pretty easy to think about that when you're in San Diego and you have a nice little city right there. Like,
hell yeah,
a lot easier to think about building in San Diego than it is hypothetically in DC.
That is true. That is a good point.
And even in Queens, because Queens is not looking so hot sometimes.
Again,
love you though, Queens.
There's plenty to talk about in terms of this, because I think what you said before too about as we gear up to end the show about the pinstripes not standing for,
and I think that's a thing in general in sports. I think the luster of like these franchises has kind of gone away, in the sense that, like, when you go to New York 20 years ago, if you signed to the Yankees, you could guarantee you're going to go play for world championships. It's not a guarantee anymore.
I have this tip in to read really quick before this phone dies, and then we can get out of here. We'll get to specifics on that Juan Soto deal probably on Thursday's show. But my dad's tip in, he said it's a quick one today. We're used to coaches moving up from the college ranks to the pros, but it's interesting to watch the Bill Belichick situation. It appears that Belichick has confirmed that he has been in talks with the University of North Carolina for the school's open head coaching job. I personally don't get it. Maybe he's bored. Maybe it's let me see if I like this. Maybe after coaching as a defensive coordinator for the Jets for 3 years, head coach for the Browns for 5 years, defensive coordinator for the New York Giants for 6 years, and most recently head coach of your New England Patriots for 24 years, with 6 Super Bowl wins under his belt, and definitely a host of NFL teams that will be pursuing his services next year, with the hopes of him being the captain that can possibly win their franchise or get their franchise to a winning atmosphere. That's where I pause. Dad, how many teams called him last year? Dad, unless your Dallas Cowboys call him, I don't think anybody else will.
I think that's probably fair, but I actually am pretty excited to see what he could do at North Carolina if that happens.
And my dad ended it with this, but you have to wonder, Is this just a ploy by Bill to make everyone thinks that he's not interested in the NFL? Sounds like another Bill Belichick mind game to me.
I don't think Bill has ever said he's not interested in the NFL. I think Bill said I think Bill, and what I've heard from the camps, obviously, and this is just news. I'm not in the camps, obviously, but what I've heard online, I think Bill, like, he's obviously using this as a way to say he's interested in coaching and that he wants to be back. I don't think he's using it to say that I think it's kind of the opposite. I think he's using it to say, like,
his team came out.
Come out and come play. Come give me an offer, or North Carolina will, and I will go, and I will coach at North Carolina because I'm serious about this.
First of all, I have never heard of Bill Belichick. First of all, I didn't know Bill Belichick had a team, but
he's got a 24-year-old girlfriend.
That's a podcast conversation. But they came out and was like, no, Bill is. They didn't say hurt, but they was like he was, for lack of a better term, offended that nobody reached out last year. But that I do believe that wholeheartedly, right? Here's the part that I do find interesting, and I think this may be the actual biggest hang up why nobody called him. I don't know if this came from his team or not, but if it's true, respectfully, that Bill Belichick, and I understand his history, but a lot of people are going to link that history, whether he wants it or not, to Tom Brady, especially since my dad just detailed every stop he had before Tom Brady. Apparently, Belichick wants complete control.
Yeah.
At a university, you could probably get that. Respectfully, if I'm the Carolina Panthers and we've already been piss poor, I don't know that I want to pay top dollar to you for us to still be in the same spot 6 years from now.
Last season, Belichick was willing to cede control to a franchise, but franchises weren't willing to allow him to cede that control because they knew what kind of like a dynamic would be in a front office if Bill Belichick is your head coach with a lessened say. Like, he's still like, every decision that GM makes would be under the microscope of having Bill Belichick's resume as a coach hinging on it. So I mean it's something that I think front offices kind of deemed like not worth the headache. Like, and I also think the guy's 80-something years old. Like, he's gonna go to UNC, and the primary goal behind that is he's gonna install his son as the coach in waiting. He's gonna coach there for 3 years, retire, and he's gonna install his son as the coach. That's basically what he's negotiating into his contract there, and North Carolina's all for it.
And I mean, if you can lock that up, I think there's worse places to be, obviously, in the sports world. But we appreciate you guys for being no other place but this one with us during this 2-hour episode, 2+ hour episode of the Talk That Talk radio show. We did it a little bit early today, just like Will said. We did a lot of talking. And not gonna lie, we'll be back on Thursday to do a little bit more. So until next time, guys, keep on talking.
It is crazy.